Chapter 1652. Damn guy, his strength is too strong, I can't break free. Aware that she was bound by Dustless, Isdeth immediately struggled with all her strength, but sadly, Dustless's hand was like the hand of God. Even if his 5 fingers were just gently pressing her, Isdeth had no extra strength to escape. Even because of the excessive force, Isdeth herself was sweating. Dustless's smile was even more difficult to hide, quietly ridiculing Isdeth for overestimating herself. I can only use that. With a ferocious luster in her eyes, Isdeth decided to use her best trick. In such an embarrassing situation, only that trick could win by surprise. Mokbotemo. With a whisper, the world in Isdeth's eyes immediately froze, everything stopped flowing, and time stopped at this moment. Damn it, where did this damned monster come from? Isdeth rubbed her sore shoulders and escaped from Dustless's restraint. Her eyes locked on him with hatred. At this moment, Dustless was like a stone, motionless. I can't hurt him, I can only hope that this guy will leave this damn place. Looking around the dark space, there were only Isdeth and Dustless in the whole world. Pucci! The ice sword was inserted into Dustless's body and cut open his stomach, but Isdeth avoided the fatal vital parts, hoping to use this to threaten Dustless to compromise. When I leave here, I will deal with you. Tiskeske, I can even see you in my dreams. Your existence is both surprising and frightening. Looking at Dustless, Isdeth grabbed his chin and stared at the motionless Dustless. Suddenly she felt that it was necessary to leave the mark of a winner on Dustless. It seems that I didn't bring anything meaningful when I came out. After thinking about it, Isdeth found that she had nothing good to leave. Finally, she looked at Dustless's dry lips and her body was uncontrollably moved. What's wrong with me? After a while, Isdeth reflexively left her own lipstick mark on Dustless's lips, which was clearly visible. She blushed when she regained her consciousness, and her delicate jade face was even blushing. However, this revenge is very suitable. That arrogant gaze of this guy is truly displeasing. Especially that appearance of his as if he is unrivaled in the world. Then Isdeth's shyness disappeared and became a matter of course. Staring at the conspicuous lipstick mark, Isdeth smiled and was very satisfied with her masterpiece. She felt that there was nothing wrong with it. The winner could do whatever they wanted with their spoils of war. They didn't need to care about the feelings of the people involved. She didn't need to care about Dustless's feelings. This was the privilege of the victor. Ka. A lot of cracks suddenly appeared in the special space. Isdeth frowned slightly and knew that the time for her unique skill, Mokbaltimo, was coming. Immediately, he looked down at Dustless with a complacent expression. He placed his hands on his hips and looked extremely arrogant, hoping to catch a glimpse of Dustless's disappointed and incredulous expression. Dustless, who just woke up from a dream, frowned and suddenly felt a tingling pain in his chest. He subconsciously forgot that it was a big sword made of ice. Is it the skill called Mokbaltimo again? It's really convenient. Completely ignoring the ice sword that penetrated into his body, Dustless suddenly touched the corner of his mouth subconsciously, and a unique fragrance rushed into his nostrils along his cheeks. This is the smell of Isdeth's body? After taking 2 deep breaths, Dustless's face became more strange. Looking at Isdeth, who was close at hand, the smell was somewhat similar to her body, or even exactly the same. He vaguely guessed that Isdeth had done something crazy to him. The moral degeneration of the world is getting worse. It is necessary to guard against female perverts in the future, otherwise, it will be easy to get away with it. Dustless said to himself like a wooden man. Why, do you have a problem? Catching the strange expression that flashed across Dustless's face, Isdeth thought it was dissatisfaction, and swore coldly and domineeringly. Don't say that I just kissed you a little now. I tell you, you are now my prisoner of war. Whatever I want to do to you, I will do it to you. All these are the privileges of the strong, and the weak are destined to be exploited and trampled. Isdeth is really arrogant and lawless. Wu Chen raised his middle finger at her without any hesitation. It's fine if you just kiss someone casually, but you even arrogantly announce that all of this is the privilege of the strong. You're so arrogant and bossy that you treat everything like an ant. But this arrogant personality was also in line with Isdeth's personality. The privileges of the strong? She whispered softly, then the ice sword that penetrated Dustless's body collapsed instantly, inexplicably all shattered, and the long and narrow wound also showed signs of recovery. In this case, that is to say, people with big fists can dominate the fate of others at will? Then please kneel down immediately and make a gesture to please me. With a wicked smile on his face, Dustless decisively chose to return all. What Death did to him, he must return all. In the words of Death, this was the privilege of the strong. The wound is healed? Death was stunned, and her eyes were wide open. She did not expect that Dustless had such an ability to make people jealous. At the same time, with the arrival of the majestic momentum, Death's knees gradually bent down. Death, now kneel down and please me. Chapter 1653. Let me kneel down to please you? Death's pretty face suddenly glanced over when she heard the words. She simply did not look at Dustless's hateful eyes. Instead of surrendering, she became more arrogant. Say a reason for me to kneel down and surrender to you. Death retorted coldly. She was not afraid of Dustless's despotic power. Death would not bow down to Dustless for such a big thing about her face. Not to mention kneeling down, it was absolutely impossible. Ah! Do you still need a reason? This kind of worthless excuse. Didn't you just say it for me? Dustless smiled and circled around Death. Then all the momentum broke out and fell on Death. She immediately gasped like a cow, but Death's knees never knelt down. Teskeske, so arrogant? Dustless smacked his mouth, then raised a wicked smile at the corner of his mouth. The sense of oppression overflowing from the body was a little stronger. Boom, boom, boom. There was a huge ripple in the dark, mysterious space. Dustless released his momentum. Death finally couldn't stand it. Even if she was unwilling, she had to bow her head at this moment and kneel in front of Dustless without dignity. Have you forgotten everything you said just now? Then let me help you remember. The winner has privileges, the privilege to let you kneel down and bow your arrogant head. Dustless looked down at Death with a threatening look, and immediately raised his eyes slightly, showing a very kind expression. I am not as bad as you, who likes to torture others' bodies. I think it is the highest level of torture to give the other party a serious mental blow and cause serious psychological obstacles. What do you want to do? Seeing Dustless's devilish smile, Death felt a chill on her back. Her tone couldn't help but be a lot weaker, not as strong as before. Hey, hey! Dustless heard the words and smiled casually. He immediately snapped his fingers and said loudly, You will know right away. Focusing on Death's blue pupils, Dustless's sight suddenly became distorted. A massive amount of eye power surged and instantly annihilated Death's mind. Tsukuyami! His eyes emitted abnormal mental power, and his eyes gently stared at Death. Her eyes suddenly became empty. She was like a walking corpse in an instant. Her eyes had no luster. In an unknown mysterious world. What is this place? Death opened her eyes and looked confused. She carefully looked at this strange world and suddenly realized that she was tied to a cross. There was no one around, and there was only a large bed in front of her. What's going on? Death was stunned. There was another her on the quilt, and what made Death blush was that she was entangled with a man, and this man was the existence that made Death gnash her teeth. Dustless. Moreover, the two of them quickly did the deed. Illusion. It must be an illusion. Death's face turned green when she saw this. She almost vomited blood when she saw herself being ruined by Dustless. This scene was unbearable. Dustless humiliated Death severely, and she even smiled shamelessly. She accepted any request of Dustless and executed it without hesitation. Hey, hey! It was an extremely obscene voice. Death turned her head and saw Dustless with a smirk on his face. He was teasing her. How does this feel? Watching yourself and your enemy doing that kind of thing together. Hey, hey! You have never experienced this before, right? This scene will play out in front of you for the next 24 hours. Dustless smiled proudly and made up his mind to destroy Death's dignity. You bastard! Kill me if you have the guts. Death vomited blood. She didn't expect Dustless to be so despicable. Don't be proud. I know this is an illusion. I won't be affected by you. Death retorted with a red face. I'm sorry. Although Tsukuyami is an illusion, everything you experience in this world will be returned to the real you. Dustless laughed with a smug expression. At the same time, Dustless waved his hand and a bottle of special pills appeared in his hand. Everything in this world was under his control. Dustless could get whatever he wanted. Gulp. Dustless glanced at Esteth maliciously and finally stuffed all the pills into her mouth. What is this? Why is it sweet? It's delicious. Give me a few more if you have the guts. Esteth pretended to be calm, but her heart was very strange. Her body was so hot that she felt uncomfortable as if she was about to explode. A few more? Dustless immediately showed a shocked expression when he heard the words. He stared at Esteth stupidly and choked. Are you sure you want a few more? And are you sure it's delicious? This thing will go bad if you eat too much. Although you have a strong ability to resist attacks, there is no need to court death. Maybe there will be a big problem. I'm fine. I'll take a few more bottles. Staring at Dustless's shocked face, Esteth had a sense of achievement. She endured the discomfort of her body and planned to annoy Dustless. This was the first time that Esteth found Dustless defeated. Of course, she had to hit him hard. However, Wu Chen's next words made Esteth, who was in high spirits, collapse. She even almost suffocated to death without being able to catch her breath. Cough, cough, cough. Miss Esteth, you think that the pill is delicious. I'm very happy because I made it myself. But I forgot to remind you just now. The pill is actually an aphrodisiac. Chapter 1654. This is an aphrodisiac? Esteth's face was extremely colorful in an instant, blue and white, purple and black. In just a few seconds, she changed more than a dozen different faces back and forth. Esteth wanted to ask Dustless if he needed to be so despicable. You bastard, I will tear you into pieces. Esteth gnashed her teeth and held back her anger. Her body was trembling, and the flame in her heart was getting hotter and hotter. Esteth was not good, her cheeks were flushed, and her blue eyes were almost bursting into flames. Still so strong. Dustless heard the words and laughed. He simply sat next to Esteth, holding his chin and smiled. I'm curious how long you can support. Oh yes. A thought flashed through his mind, then Wu Chen said loudly, Miss Esteth, if I remember correctly, you just wanted to eat this thing, right? Pointing to the pill in his hand. It was the aphrodisiac that Esteth had just eaten. I didn't. Esteth quickly denied. Kidding, only an idiot would continue to eat that thing. You are just my captive now, and you have no right to choose. Glancing at Esteth faintly, Dustless did not hesitate to pour another bottle of medicine into Esteth's throat. Woo woo woo. Gulp. Esteth gnashed her teeth, but her arms couldn't resist the long legs. After a few sobs, she swallowed all the aphrodisiac into her throat. Hey, this is a good show. Ignoring Esteth who was vomiting, Dustless stared at Esteth motionlessly, as if he had found a fun toy and was very interested. You wait. Esteth was extremely sad, she clenched her gums, and even blood oozed out. The pain made her think clearly. Gee, your determination is really admirable. Aren't you afraid of biting off your tongue? Dustless said with a worried tone, but he really admired Esteth's decisiveness in his heart. You look down on me too much. Esteth snorted coldly. Her tone was still that of a queen. Even if she was full of flaws, even if she became a captive, she would not easily bow down to Dustless. Really? Then congratulations on passing the first level, Miss Esteth. You can enjoy it slowly. Such an experience is unforgettable. I said before that the duration of Tsukuyami is 24 hours. Dustless wore a harmless smile on his face. He waved his hand and disappeared from the Tsukuyami space. The world that entered his eyes turned into endless darkness. It's about time to go back. That damned brat. Does she think she's special? What a joke. But since this kind of thing happens suddenly, I don't need to do anything in the future. Esteth hates the father and son. Ding ding. Yin yin yin. A light hum came out from Esteth's mouth. Looking down at her dark red cheeks, it seemed that Esteth's head was not normal at the moment. Her eyes were filled with desire as she tried her best to raise her burning right arm to tug at the corner of Dustless's clothes. She couldn't help but touch the most important part of Dustless's body. All of this was done instinctively. Tisk tisk, it's really abnormal. Carefully observing Esteth's blurred eyes, Dustless's heart was as calm as water, and his wild nature could be controlled reasonably. Death exuded a strong smell of maturity. People with a little less concentration might rush to her. It's time to retreat. Ignoring the dark world, Dustless gently raised his right arm, covered with a special Ryatsu fluctuation. This was not the Ryatsu of an ordinary Grim Reaper. The temperament was cruel and fierce. It was undoubtedly the Ryatsu of a greater void. Greater void above Ajuchas, including Ajuchas, had a special ability, Black Cavity, which could open the space crack connecting to other dimensions, so it was not difficult to leave here. After a while, Dustless raised his right hand, condensed an inexplicable power, and immediately slid it gently. Ka-ka-ka! This mysterious world of different dimensions suddenly broke, and the bright sunshine also shone in. Death, who had been tortured by the blow, also opened her eyes and looked at the world full of life. Her eyes were dull and empty. I'm counting on you to retaliate against Minister Onesta. Don't let me down. Turning his head and holding Death, Wu Chen stepped out of the dark extra-dimensional space. The bright sky was cloudless. Although the air of the blue void was full of blood, it was fresher than the previous place where he couldn't even see his own fingers. Dustless stepped on the void and looked at the ground below. It was a large number of human-shaped dangerous species that were slaughtered. I guess I came and the others have retreated. His observation hockey spread out and found that within a few kilometers of the surrounding area, there was no sign of life, and the dense forest had become an out-and-out place in the world, without a trace of life. It's time for me to retreat. Moving his stiff body a little, Dustless was about to leave, but Istetha's voice stopped Dustless from leaving. You'd better kill me. Istetha's tone was weak, her body was hollowed out, her clothes were wet and filled with a special accident. Although you hate me now, maybe you will come to me for help in the future. His clear eyes locked on the powerless Isteth. Dustless waved his hand and left leisurely. Without enough strength in the future, Isteth will not continue to come to die. Unless she still wants to experience the unforgettable feeling of a lifetime. At present, Istetha's big enemies, there are two more abominable objects. Minister Onesta and his son. They are more annoying than Dustless. Without them, nothing will happen, and Isteth will not be played by Dustless. The initiators of all this are Minister Onesta and his son. Isteth naturally hates them, and it is necessary to rush back to the capital to retaliate. Chapter 1655. Isteth was not a naive girl. She knew what would happen if she retaliated against Dustless before she had enough strength. This time, Dustless just deliberately disgusted her to shatter Istetha's unattainable heart. Next time when she was tired of Dustless, she could kill him. The stronger a person was, the more difficult it was to figure out their mind. They could call each other brothers in the last second, but the next second, they could turn into a smiling tiger and stab him in the back at any time. Dustless, I will fight you to death. Isteth gasped with her mouth wide open. She was tortured by Dustless. During the time in the Tsukuyami space, every day felt like a year, which made Isteth understand the highest level of torturing people. She was so inexperienced before. Plop! Isteth, who had just stood up, didn't expect to fall to the ground before she took a step. Her body had been hollowed out by the hateful aphrodisiac. She walked unsteadily. Isteth herself was also very confused. People who didn't know the truth might think that she was sleepwalking. Lady Isteth. The happy and excited voice came from not far away. She turned her head and saw a few people reflected in her eyes. It was Istetha's Hunter Special Police. But several people were deeply tired, and there were obvious knife wounds on their clothes. Their faces were sallow, and they were not much different from refugees suffering from famine. It's good that you are all right. Her tiredness was swept away, and Isteth showed a satisfied smile. She hid it very well. The unlucky things that happened with Dustless before were out of her sight. By the way, what happened to the scars on your body? These seem to be knife wounds. Don't tell me that those dangerous species in human form can use weapons. Isteth asked puzzledly. Is Isteth talking about these scars? Will took a step forward, bowed his head and reported angrily. It's the minister's son, Sheila. When we were hunting dangerous species, that guy led the army to attack us indiscriminately. He didn't even give a reason. In order to cover our retreat, Speaking of this, Lon, Will, and Curome all lowered their heads in shame. The meaning was self-evident. Damn you, Sheila. Damn Minister Ernest. Death was furious. She turned into a demon and released a suffocating killing intent. The area within hundreds of meters was covered with ice. Even some birds on the treetops were frozen and turned into specimens before they could fly. Death naturally knew the hidden meaning of Will's words. Bowles had been killed. The members of the night raid were now filled with resentment towards the father and son of the minister. They had also lost their last bit of confidence in the Empire. In fact, Will had even suggested joining the night raid. Surprisingly, the other members did not object to it. Go back to the imperial capital and chop the ministers into pieces to feed the dogs. Lowering the brim of her hat, Istetha's breath was as cold as the cold wind. This wild beast showed its sharp fangs out of the cage. She used to aim at the enemy, but this time she aimed at the Empire. She forgot all the grievances with Dustless. In the new night raid base. I thought that guy was dead. In the conference room, looking at Dustless sitting opposite, Tatsumi covered his eyes in despair. He didn't have the ability to kill Dustless. The tragedy was that even God protected Dustless, and he could be lucky every time. This is the fundamental reason why I was temporarily restrained. 10 minutes later, Dustless reported the reason for his disappearance to Najenda. Of course, he chose to forget the thing with his death. This would definitely be isolated as a pervert, but some people still made use of it. I didn't expect his death to be so obsessed with you. Leonet's eyes were shining, then she slammed the table and suggested loudly, "Why don't we use Dustless to seduce his death? Maybe we can kill her." Pucci. The tea that he just drank was sprayed out. Dustless stared at Leonet and scolded, "Death is not a love-struck fool, and my charm is not that big. Let's put Istetha's matter aside for the time being. I'm afraid that she will have a great change. We don't need to provoke this furious lioness for the time being. Don't act rashly." Boss Najenda abnormally refused Leonet's proposal. If it was before, she might really accept this proposal, but now the situation was different. Isteth was trapped by Minister Onest and even almost died. According to Najenda's understanding of Isteth, Onest and his son would inevitably suffer from Istetha's crazy revenge. Naturally, there was no need to participate in the night raid. It was best to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Our next task is Balak. He is the assistant of the Taoist Master of Tranquility, but his real identity is the undercover sent by Minister Onest. There is news that the Taoist Master of Tranquility is planning an armed uprising recently, but this Balak is the biggest obstacle. For the revolution, we must get rid of him. This old guy is not simple. He knows that he is the target of the night raid, and there are masters like the 4 Rakshasa demons around him to protect him. Boss Najenda explained happily. As long as the Taoist Master of Tranquility also followed the uprising, the empire would be finished soon, and a new country would come. Finally, we are going to kill this eyesore empire. The members of the night raid were very excited. They had been assassins for so long. No matter who they assassinated or protected, they just wanted to destroy the empire. Finally, they waited for this day, and everyone was very happy. Yes, the infinite Tsukuyami will save all living beings soon. Everyone should feel happy. Chapter 1656. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! In the palace hall, there was an angry voice. The strong minister was smashing all kinds of exquisite porcelain angrily. "General Isteth, don't kill us!" Outside the hall such screams could be heard. Pucci! However, what they got in return was the sound of the cold body being cut. "Shura, Sheila. You are useless. Didn't you tell me that you killed Isteth? Why is she resurrected now? I really shouldn't have trusted a piece of trash like you." Minister Onesta scolded his son to his face. This old man. Sheila's mind was filled with hundreds of thousands of alpacas. He didn't know how Isteth came back, especially looking at Istetha's appearance of killing hundreds of people. He couldn't help but feel cold. The so-called troops and numbers were meaningless in front of Isteth. Especially she had several loyal and strong subordinates. "Your Majesty." Minister Onesta's eyes were bright, looking at the young emperor with impassioned eyes. As if he saw gold, the desperate old eyes were shining. "Minister." The young emperor's pupils shrank. His face was slightly stiff. The old man's eyes made him a little overwhelmed. He was almost melted. "You should immediately show the temperament of an emperor now. Use the strongest, supreme taigu, supreme taser, to give justice to his death, the traitor. Minister Onesta cried loudly. If your majesty doesn't do it, and continues to be silent, the empire will be disintegrated by the traitorous death. The empire must not collapse in my generation. Absolutely. The young emperor's eyes were red when he heard the words. He had accepted the Minister Onesta suggestion in his mind. You are really my father. Sheila saw that the emperor was so easy to fool. He secretly admired him. After despising him in his mind, he gave the minister a thumbs up. Pah! Sheila suddenly felt a pain in his old face. He looked in the mirror and saw that it was a huge palm print. Minister Onesta even slapped him mercilessly. You are useless. Minister Onesta was so angry that his blood pressure rose and his head was spinning. He was disappointed with this good son. If it weren't for his bad idea, Istetha's betrayal wouldn't have happened. Damn it! Minister Onesta was furious. Thinking of the fate of being caught alive by Istetha, his fat face trembled. If he was caught alive, he would inevitably be subjected to the most severe torture. Get the hell out of here! Minister Onesta shouted coldly. Now that things had progressed to this point, he no longer counted on this deceitful son of his. It was much easier to deal with a foolish and easily fooled emperor. Istetha will be dealt with by his majesty. Now you should go to reinforce Balak. That guy is very important now. If he has a problem, don't come back. Remember, you have to go there secretly and don't let anyone find out. You'd better kill all the members of Night Raid. Otherwise, even if you're my son, I won't let you off easily. Do you understand? Azura. Minister Onesta waved his hand, indicating that his idiot son could scram. 3 days later, at the site of Anning Road, all the members of Night Raid gathered here. Originally, everyone was ready to fight with the Empire. Unexpectedly, Istetha suddenly attacked the imperial capital. Most of the soldiers were involved. Now the task of Night Raid was much easier. I hope that General Istetha will be a good person to the end and help us kill Minister Onesta and the little emperor. Wu Chen, Mine, and Qi Tong walked on the street openly. Now the empire was besieged on all sides, and it was in a dangerous and embarrassing situation that the empire was about to collapse. No one cared about them. Have you found that these people are not right? They look at us strangely. Stopping, Dustless glanced at the passers-by with a face full of doubts. He always felt that these people's eyes were full of hatred and disgust, and full of hatred. Stupid Dustless, of course, we are all killers, and we don't disguise ourselves. It's normal for people to feel strange and afraid when they look at us. Mine replied proudly and snorted proudly. Or you and Istetha have been together for a period of time, and your head is not enough for you to think about her big breasts? You didn't even notice such a little thing. I can smell something else from your tone. Dustless's eyes fell on Mine's head, and he teased with a smile. Are you jealous? Jealous that Istetha has bigger breasts than you? Mine's tone is really sour, and there is indeed the possibility of jealousy. Akame added quickly, making Mine's face blush to the extreme, giving people a sense of danger that was about to explode. Bullshit. Mine straightened her chest, held her head high, raised her hands and turned her head disdainfully. What's the use of those 2 lumps of meat? I will dislike them when I walk. Let me tell you too, as a woman, the connotation is the key. Mine, don't quibble, I can smell your jealousy. Akame shook her head gently, and her eyes were always staring at the heads of the passers-by. She also felt strange. In addition to assassinating Balak, it seems that our mission is to instigate the Anning sect. Why haven't we seen the hierarch yet? I remember that the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army contacted him in advance. Also, I think there are problems in other places. Akame looked at these people cautiously and said in a deep voice, to be honest, I also feel that these believers are full of hostility to us. The Revolutionary Army should have no hatred with them. Why do they have a hidden killing intent to us? Or, is this my illusion? It's not an illusion. I can also feel the hostility clearly. Dustless looked serious and said calmly, there is another possibility. The hierarch disappeared or he may have died. These believers are hostile to us. I am afraid that it is because the behind-the-scenes manipulator pushed the death of the hierarch of the Anning sect to us. Chapter 1657. Was he killed? Mine and Scarlet Pupil lowered their heads and pondered. If they analyzed carefully, it was not impossible. On the way here, they received the news that someone wanted to assassinate the hierarch of a Ning sect. In order to prevent the rebellion of a Ning sect, Minister Ernest instigated his subordinate Polly to kill the hierarch, and then it was normal to blame the news on the night raid. Let's retreat temporarily. Dustless suddenly suggested softly as he looked at the dark alley on the left. Later, regardless of whether Scarlet Pupil and Mine struggled or not, he directly pulled them away. Ah, that guy has a good nose. It's really a headache. Shortly after Dustless and others left, there was an unhappy tone from the previous alley. He said in surprise, "That guy named Dustless seems to have noticed something wrong. Damn it, I still want them to continue to sneak into the city and then annihilate them. Who knows that these guys of the night raid slipped away in advance, a group of cowards." With the help of the blurred light, 4 vague figures with different appearances could be seen in the depths of the corner. 2 were women and 2 were men. They were the private executioners of Minister Ernest, 4 Rakshasa demons. Catch up with them. Anyway, Polly has Master Sheila's protection. If we kill all the members of the night raid, it will be a great achievement. Ling Lu, one of the 4 Rakshasa demons, said. Yes, don't be afraid. 4 against 3, we have an absolute advantage. The other 3 nodded after hearing the words. They glanced coldly at the direction where Dustless and others left. They immediately looked at each other and decisively followed. Looking at this posture, it seemed that they wanted to beat up Dustless and others. Hoo. The night sky fell, the cold wind of the night was blowing. It was extremely piercing and filled with a different kind of oppression. Somewhere on the top of a low hill, Wu Chen, Mine and Chi Tong looked down at the town in the distance. They were all silent. Only Mine's eyes were rolling. Why should we retreat? Mine asked puzzledly. She clearly noticed that someone was secretly following them at that time. She could take this opportunity to kill the other party and ask about the internal information of a Ning sect. Ask me why. Of course, we have to change to a more suitable place for the duel. Fighting in a spacious open area is definitely better than fighting in a narrow street. Dustless turned his head slightly, revealing half of his face. He stared at the flickering shadow. If I'm not wrong, the 4 of you think so too, right? He discovered us. The 4 Rakshasa demons, who were hiding, looked at each other in shock. They seemed to be very confident in their skills in hiding their aura, and all of them had an incredulous expression on their faces. I'll say it again. It's 4 against 3. There's no reason for us to lose. GD, one of the 4 Rakshasa demons, showed up. He was the strongest, so he should be the vanguard. Humph, not only did he run away, he even dared to stop and put on airs. G, the strongest of the 4 Rakshasa demons, sneered. Long time no see, Chi Tong. Thorn. Chi Tong also nodded slightly. The 2 of them had known each other for a long time. They were both members of the assassination team, but now that their positions were different, Chi Tong decisively drew his sword. Run away? You must have made a mistake. I waited for so long just for the 4 of you. I thought that you would take the initiative to launch a sneak attack, but who would have thought that you would suddenly hide like rats? Your performance is too disappointing. An assassin dares to be so arrogant? Hearing this, the members of the 4 Rakshasa demons glared at him. In the past, before the Empire was in chaos, night raids were often carried out with their tails between their legs and kept a low profile. No matter where they went, it was the same. They had to put on a meticulous disguise. Now, they were so arrogant that they dared to invade. This was a naked provocation. Can you 2 deal with the 4 of them? Dustless asked Chi Tong and Mine lazily. As for Sheila. He turned his head and glanced at the city in the distance. I'll deal with the minister's son and that bollock. Damn old guy, he actually sent me to this damn place. In the luxurious palace, Sheila complained while drinking. She was quite tired of her father, Minister Ernest, and hated the current boring and monotonous life. Boom boom boom. A huge explosion rose into the sky, and then the warm palace was penetrated by someone. The cold wind along with an indifferent voice all fell into Sheila's ears. There's no need to resent him. In a month at most, you and your father, Minister Onesta, will meet again in the frying pan of hell. Who is it? Get out of here. Sheila saw the situation and shouted. He suddenly stood up decadently. His body was tall, and his muscles were extremely strong and hard. He clenched his fists and looked quite intimidating. However, this inexplicable majesty only lasted for a few seconds, and it was an instant tragedy. Boom, boom, boom. A dazzling light came from the sky without warning. The dazzling light covered Sheila's whole body, and the blazing temperature made her feel a fatal threat. It's too dangerous. It can even track automatically? With a flash, Sheila hurriedly dodged the attack of the light. She was more than 10 meters away and thought that she could avoid the disaster, but before Sheila could even catch her breath, she was once again suppressed by the merciless flash. Boom, boom, boom. The strong and fierce force suddenly fell, mercilessly stepped on Sheila's head and stomped her whole body into the ground. Even the ground showed signs of cracking because of the strong force. Speed is power. Have you ever been kicked by the speed of light, Sheila? Chapter 1658. Boom, boom, boom. Endless rays of light whizzed toward his face. Sheila felt the deadly sharpness. His breathing was accelerated by dozens of times, and there were even bean-sized sweat drops on his forehead. Buzz, buzz, buzz. He subconsciously activated the taigu with his right hand. Boom, boom, boom. The place where Sheila stood was attacked by the light speed kick and turned into scorched earth. The entire palace was in ruins, and the moon hanging high in the sky suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. Master Sheila. The huge vibration attracted the attention of the guards of the Anonism sect. A middle-aged man with a fat face and luxurious clothes hurried over, looking at the ruins in front of him. His face was very nervous. This person was Bolek, and he was also the spy sent by Onesta to monitor the hierarch of the Anonism sect. Is this guy really here to protect me? Damn it, he better not get beaten to death. Otherwise, Minister Onesta will not let me go. Bolek looked around anxiously and carefully searched for Sheila's traces. He cursed him thousands of times in his mind. After all, Sheila was Onesta's son. If he died here, Bolek would be implicated as well. Of course he is fine. The ability of the taigu is not bad, it can move in space. A strange voice sounded in his ears. Bolek looked over there. When he just turned his head, a thug grabbed his throat and then easily lifted Bolek up. It's so uncomfortable. His neck was grabbed. Bolek felt that breathing was 100 times more difficult than usual. He glanced at the culprit with tears, trying to win sympathy. But after seeing the culprit behind the scenes, his heart suddenly became weak. Dustless of the night attack? Bolek's heart was cold, and he was desperate. The night attack was all emotionless executioners. It was more realistic to expect them to be merciful than to pray to God. Do you know me? The indifferent face slightly relaxed. Dustless sighed. Damn, I wanted to kill you directly, but I didn't expect you to know me. Gulp. Bolek choked for a moment, and suddenly there was hope for survival. Listening to Dustless's words, it seemed that he wanted to let him go. Of course I know you. Your name is spread all over the capital. No, it is spread all over the world, Master Dustless. Bolek flattered. He was happier than seeing his father. Do you know me? That's for the best. I don't want to waste time talking nonsense. It'll save me a lot of trouble. Dustless sighed in relief. Then please let me go, sir. I'll disappear from your sight and you won't be in any trouble. Bolek said excitedly. Huh. You've misunderstood me. Dustless was startled when he heard this. Then he said coldly, You know my name. After you go to the underworld, you can give King Yama a suitable answer and know who killed you. I don't need to introduce myself. That's all. Goodbye. Crack. As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Chen exerted his strength and broke Bolek's neck. Damn it, you actually dared to kill him. Sheila appeared with an ashen face, the veins on his face bulging. You must die here today. Minister Onesta had asked Shira to protect Bolek. Now that Shira had been killed by the night raid and there was no way to capture Dustless, even if the minister was his father, he would not have a good ending. Bring it on. Hooking his finger, Dustless threw away Bolek in his hand and signaled Sheila to bring it on. Taigu Shangri-La. Sheila shouted. The taigu in his hand shone with purple light and covered Sheila's whole body. Then his strong body evaporated and disappeared without a sign. The ability of this taigu is not bad. It's worth collecting as a toy. Dustless showed a satisfied expression. Then he opened his mouth gently and said, 90 black coffin of breaking Tao. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The Ryatsu in Dustless's body was rolling. The black light condensed and attacked from all directions. The quantity was enough to easily turn a person into a sieve. And the target of the attack was Dustless himself. It seemed that they wanted to die together with him. Puchi! 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 The horrifying sound continued, and there was a lot of blood on the ground. Impossible. It's absolutely impossible. How can you guess where I will appear? The space-type Taigu is not just a simple body movement. You can't predict where I will appear. Sheila shouted in disbelief. Looking at him carefully, he was covered with bruises. There were traces of being crushed by the black coffin. The whole person was also full of holes. You're right. I can't predict where you will appear. However, don't forget that the target of your attack is only me from the beginning to the end. So as long as the target of the black coffin is set to be me, then you will naturally be involved. Dustless explained calmly. You damned bastard. Sheila heard the words and gritted his teeth. The black coffin on his body had been torn, and the blood kept flowing. It was only a matter of time before he died. If I die you will also die. Who let you set yourself as the target? After a while, Sheila laughed gloatingly. It's a good ending to die with you, ha ha ha. Really? Then I'm sorry. Although I have lived for hundreds of years, as you can see, I'm far from living enough. Opening his clothes revealing his intact chest, Dustless explained faintly. My body, I have used armament hockey to defend before and it's intact. Puchi! Sheila, who couldn't stand the blow, spat out blood. After looking at Dustless unwillingly, he closed his eyes in despair, and was so angry that he vomited blood and died in advance. Chapter 1659. It's really sad. Glancing at Sierra indifferently, Dustless stepped over his body and left. When he was about to take away the Taigu, a pair of rough big hands suddenly grabbed his right leg. Ha 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 ha. I caught it. Sierra, who closed his eyes, suddenly opened his eyes again, showing a crazy light, and the light of the extinguished Taigu actually shined again. The purple light flashed unscrupulously, covering a large range. All the space that was affected was distorted, and it was deterred by a special force, revealing an indescribable ominous feeling. You are really tough. Your heart was torn by the black coffin. Dustless did not change his expression. He knew that this guy would use the ability to calculate himself and his death last time. Don't forget my identity. It's easy to get the enhancer. If you want to complain, you can only complain that you treat me as an ordinary human being. Sierra said proudly, his face was red. He was excited as if he had taken drugs. It was obviously a final radiance. Really? Then I will reluctantly admit you. However, do you think this trick is useful? You sent me in his death to a different space. I still came back safe and sound. Dustless glanced at Sierra contemptuously. The space around had begun to change, and appeared in a strange world, but Dustless was still unmoved. You guy. Sierra's old face was particularly gloomy when he heard the words. Dustless was sent to another dimension. It was too strange that he could still come back. Do you think I will do the same thing again? You underestimate me too much. Sierra suddenly changed his face and smiled. When I traveled to the edge of the Empire, I once found a special good place. There were dangerous species everywhere, and even super dangerous species appeared. The voice just fell. The world in front of Dustless's eyes was brand new. It was originally a large ruin, but now it became a wilderness. There were weathered white bones everywhere. Ow! Immediately after, a heart-wrenching roar spread through the sky. Dustless's appearance was like a rich fragrance of honey, attracting groups of dangerous species to whiz over. Ha ha ha. This is a good place, right? I've been here before. This trick was originally reserved for Generalist Death, but unfortunately, that smelly old man sent me here to deal with you. Sheila looked up to the sky and laughed. She stared at Dustless, trying to capture a trace of fear. After all, this location was special. Not to mention the large number of dangerous species gathered here, there were also super dangerous species that were countless times stronger than dangerous species. In Sheila's view, Dustless was already in a state of certain death. Why didn't you even leave a corpse for yourself? After a moment of silence, Dustless suddenly asked such an inexplicable question, which confused Sierra. Sheila was taken aback. She said coldly, Don't you know how to speak human language? Please say that I can understand. Ah, it's so hot. Damn it, what's going on? Sheila, who was lying on the ground, suddenly howled in pain. She was shocked to find that the ground was too much of a stretch. The ground that had been hard just a moment ago was all bubbling. Is this King magma? Could it be that I'm dreaming? Sheila rolled on the ground to relieve her pain as she looked at the ground around her in shock. His body had begun to melt and gradually disappeared. Are you the one who did this? Sheila gritted her teeth in pain and suddenly wished that she could die earlier. At the same time, she looked at Dustless. She was sure that he was the initiator. At this moment, his appearance was very strange, and there was a dark red reincarnation Sharingan on his forehead. I have lived for hundreds of years, and I have never shown this eye on my forehead. You are the first. You are lucky, but also very tragic, because you won't even leave a corpse. Glancing at Sheila with a blank face, Dustless whispered, Heaven's defense. Gulp. Spatial displacement. Dustless and the rest arrived at an unfamiliar world. But this world's myriad phenomena were all constructed from magma. Mountains were formed by magma, rivers were also formed by magma, and the earth was also tumbling magma. Everything in this world was made of magma. Ah, it's so hot! With a scream, Sheila fell into the magma, including those dangerous species. They were swallowed by the super-large magma world in an instant. This loot is not bad. Looking at the taigu in his hand, Dustless nodded with satisfaction. Among many taigu, this was the only one that he could see. Dimensional Matrix, Shangri-La. Dustless was the Jubi itself. He once occupied everything of Kagaya. He could use all her techniques, but there was no suitable target to use it. Now this guy got it. 2 days later, they attacked the base at night. Dustless, Mine and Ekame returned safely. Unexpectedly, when they just returned to the base, they got the shocking news from the boss Najenda. Dustless also lost his mind for a while. Is-Death lost? This joke is not funny at all. I still believe that Is-Death will lose to Dustless. How can she lose to the useless Minister Ernest? This information is wrong. Lubbock tore the information in his hand into pieces and felt that his IQ was insulted. The news in the imperial capital was very tight, but some people saw the clues. At that time, a giant appeared in the sky of the imperial capital. It was dozens of meters high. It finally defeated Is-Death, and it was still an overwhelming victory. Najenda took a smoke and then said seriously, It is rumored that it is the strongest taigu, the supreme taigu that only the blood of the emperor can activate, supreme taser. Even if the little emperor really uses taser, it is impossible to crush Is-Death. Dustless shook his head resolutely. He knew the strength of Is-Death. She might be defeated, but it was not scientific to crush Is-Death. Chapter 1660. Of course, the form of the battlefield was constantly changing. There was no absoluteness. Sometimes a moment of carelessness may lead to a complete loss. This kind of thing was everywhere. And thinking carefully, it was not impossible for Is-Death to be defeated. Anyway, the intelligence clearly points out that Is-Death was defeated. Najenda deepened her tone. No matter how ridiculous it was, the fact was the fact. That Taigu Supreme Taser is very powerful. Dustless touched his chin and said. He looked quite scared. If one ignored his playful and eager smile, perhaps everyone would think so. However, there was a hint of anticipation on his face. It was obvious that he wanted to challenge him and was not afraid at all. I am afraid that Is-Death's Taigu was sealed by Minister Ernest, otherwise she would not be defeated. Dustless secretly guessed. In the original work, Leonette was a living example. Her Taigu was sealed. If Is-Death also lost her Taigu, then her strength would definitely be greatly reduced. She was defeated by the most powerful Taigu Supreme Taser with overwhelming strength. It could be barely justified. Then, I will announce a new order. Blowing a smoke ring heavily, Najenda looked serious and said surprisingly, Is-Death, that guy, is going to cooperate with us. It's impossible. Lubbock and others exclaimed. They were shocked by Najenda's words. Jaegers was the enemy of the night raid. They had no reason to surrender. Especially many members of Jaegers were killed by the night raid. The original prediction was right. Dustless smiled and did not have much surprise. He said easily, "If his death is defeated, it is reasonable for her to cooperate with us. After all, everyone's enemy is the Empire. Isteth can't deal with the Empire alone. It is reasonable to jump into the same trench with us." "What about Qrome?" Akame asked nervously. "Jaegers also chose to join us in the night raid." Najenda smiled excitedly. She couldn't digest this big pie for a while. With Isteth and her Jaegers, overthrowing the Empire was inevitable. Qrome. Qitong also had a surprised smile on her face when she heard this. Her smile was as gentle as the light, giving people the feeling that she had eaten honey. It was obvious that Qitong had a special place in her heart. "Let's get ready and meet with Isteth after 3 hours." In the dense forest that stretched as far as the eye could see, there were a few exhausted figures sitting on the gravel. They were the Hunter Special Police who were currently in danger. "I can't believe that I actually lost. Losing to Dustless is one thing, but I actually lost to that useless minister and the puppet emperor, damn it." Cruelty flashed in Isteth's eyes, and her self-esteem was hit. Now there were only 3 hunters left. One was Isteth, the other was Qrome, and Will. The rest of the members had all fallen in the previous battle. "Miss Isteth, your embarrassed expression is really wonderful. I feel that I can eat 10 more bowls of food when I go back." A voice full of banter suddenly came, and in the jungle, there were several strange breaths. "Are they here?" Hearing this cynical voice, Isteth knew that the old enemy was here. Dustless. Through the dense leaves, the silhouettes that came out of the darkness were Dustless, Qitong, Leonette, and the boss Najenda. As for the others, they were all ambushed secretly. Once Isteth had abnormal behavior, they would immediately eliminate them. "Long time no see, Isteth." Najenda glared at Dustless, which meant that he should not make trouble, and immediately walked to Isteth politely and shook hands with her. As I expected, Isteth's taiga was sealed, so it is normal for her to lose to the little emperor. The taiga symbol between Isteth's 2 chests had disappeared at the moment. Dustless looked at Isteth carefully, and the appreciation on his face was not hidden. Without the ability of Taigu, she could still take 2 subordinates with her own strength to escape from the Supreme Taigu, Supreme Taser. What Isteth did was commendable. "Qrome. Sister." Both Qitong and Qrome looked at each other complicatedly. From the enemy to the ally in the same trench, the 2 sisters seemed to be difficult to accept for a while. "Najenda. Let's work together. When attacking the capital, I am willing to be the first to fight until the breath is completely lost." With a wave of her hand, Isteth announced with a domineering momentum. But these words fell into Dustless's ears. It was tantamount to looking for death. Without Taigu, if she wanted to fight with the Taigu Supreme Taser alone, wasn't this looking for death? "This is the best. We will definitely win. Also, it's late. Temporarily return to the night raid base to make a long-term plan." Najenda nodded like a chicken, and finally invited Isteth to dinner. It was better to rest in the night raid base and get closer to each other. This was an indispensable ally. Although Isteth's strength was now greatly reduced, the only one who dared to say that he could crush her in the night raid was Dustless. Moreover, even if Isteth suddenly attacked, Najenda did not care. Anyway, Dustless could subdue her. There was nothing to be afraid of. "By the way, I have always wanted to ask a question." At this time, Dustless suddenly interrupted and asked a very sensitive question, so that Isteth and Najenda were both stiff. The relatively harmonious scene was made rather awkward by Dustless for a while. Chapter 1661. Our Alliance. Does the Revolutionary Army know the news? Staring at Najenda and Isteth's face, Dustless said without thinking, "Isteth is the big enemy of the Revolutionary Army, Najenda. If we form an alliance rashly, there may be a big problem." "Don't worry about it for the time being. I will take full responsibility for the problem." Najenda replied frankly, intending to take all the blame. Isteth was the strongest sadist general of the Empire. The Revolutionary Army was killed by her. The Revolutionary Army also hated Isteth. Seeing the victory in hand, the Revolutionary Army would never join forces with such a sinner. "As you like." Dustless couldn't say much. After all, this was the choice of the boss, Najenda. Although he felt that this behavior was digging a hole for himself, Dustless still chose to respect her will. At most, he would help Najenda once at a critical moment. Putong. At this moment, an unexpected figure suddenly fell to the ground and fainted with a very haggard look. Kurome. Chi Tong hurriedly ran to Kurome's side and held her tightly in his arms. He raised his voice several times and stared at Kurome, trying not to let go of every inch of her skin, for fear that he would miss a wound. Her body has been hollowed out. Looking down at Kurome, who fell in Akame's arms, Dustless sighed with regret. After a series of battles before, I am afraid that she will die soon. Kurome. This sentence was like thunder for Akame. She was stunned instantly, her jade hand trembled and stroked Kurome's cheek, her throat was choked up. Fate is really cruel. Witnessing such a scene, everyone's faces were bleak, and there was a feeling of sadness. Witnessing the departure of their companions, sometimes, they couldn't help but think about their own future. Especially Akame's desperate eyes were even more unforgettable. Ah, do you need to be so sad? Although I said that she will die soon, I didn't say that she can't be saved. It was very discordant, but it made Akame happy. Can you really do it? Dustless. Chi Tong grabbed Dustless excitedly. He couldn't help but grab Dustless's hands and place them on his chest. Feeling the scorching heat, Chi Tong's despairing heart was ignited once again. Cough, cough. Dustless's face stiffened slightly, and he hurriedly withdrew his hands from Chi Tong's grasp. She had placed them in the wrong position, and they were too close. Even though they were separated by clothes, Dustless could still feel their delicate touch. It wasn't Dustless's fault, but Chi Tong's career line was too majestic. It's just a small matter. If it's Tatsumi, I can't save him. If it's your sister, even if her head is separated, I will make her come back to life. Does this bastard know how to speak properly? Why does he have to drag me into this every time? Tatsumi, who was hiding in the dark, was so angry that he stomped his feet. Every time he was so miserable. Even if he didn't offend Dustless, he was still inexplicably tricked by this guy. Could it be that this guy is omnipotent? Glancing at Dustless with a complicated look, Isdeth looked lonely. She used to have the hope of surpassing Dustless. Now after losing the power of Taigu, her confidence was also annihilated, and now it was gone with the wind. She used to fantasize about keeping Dustless as a pet, but now it seemed that there was no chance in this life. In the base of the night attack, Najenda and Isdeth had something to talk about. Dustless, Chi Tong, and her sister were closed in a special room with only one bed. The person lying on the operating table was Kurome. Crack! Dustless's sudden move made Chi Tong very nervous. She saw that Chi Tong broke Kurome's clothes, revealing her petite body. Damn Empire! Chi Tong clenched her fists tightly. At first, she thought that Wu Chen was going to take advantage of her. It was not until she lifted her clothes that she realized that Chi Tong's abdomen was pitch black, like a rotten corpse. This was the sequelae of long-term injection of drugs. Yin-Yang release is a very magical ninjutsu. It not only has amazing attack power, but also can create something out of nothing and create a new organ. Even if Kurome's internal organs collapse, and some parts of her body are close to rot, as long as you help her create a new body, she can recover safely. Dustless explained while treating Kurome's overwhelmed body. Especially the abdomen was the most obvious place. The dark, rotten and terrible epidermis was brand new and condensed into the bright skin. Can human beings and Taiga do this kind of thing? Chi Tong's heart was pounding. She witnessed Hei Tong's gradually recovering and her cheeks were rosy. She had a blind admiration for Wu Chen. The thin young man in front of her could be said to be an omnipotent existence. There was nothing that he couldn't think of, but nothing he couldn't do. I will wipe your sweat for you. Such an ability must be very energy-consuming. Chi Tong carefully wiped the sweat for Dustless. Looking at the face close at hand, her heart trembled inexplicably. Noticing that Chi Tong was staring at him without blinking, Dustless patted her on the shoulder and explained to himself, after so many years, I have already reached the level of controlling and using yin-yang release. It doesn't consume energy. At the same time, Kurome, who was in a coma, slowly opened her eyes and found the most shocking scene in her life. Chi Tong's face was close to Dustless's cheek. Her eyes were empty as if she was possessed by a devil. No one knew what she was thinking. Even because they were too close to each other, they could feel the heat of each other's breath. Chapter 1662. The two looked around, and the atmosphere fell into an unprecedented strange silence. Is it possible that Scarlet Pupil is fascinated by my aggressiveness? On the surface, he was indifferent, but Dustless was happy in his heart, and he couldn't help but daydream. In the original work, Tatsumi could fool Scarlet Pupil. Dustless did not think that he was worse than Tatsumi. Whether it was strength, charm, or other aspects, Dustless thought that he was better than Tatsumi. Which was more popular, a hero or a bear? There was no doubt that it was the former, and Dustless belonged to the former. Although Tatsumi was good, compared with Dustless, he could only be a bear. At this time I should take Scarlet Pupil into my arms, and then, hee. Dustless raised a slanted smile at the corner of his mouth, and his hand could not help but reach out to Scarlet Pupil's waist. Boom boom boom. Before Dustless completely made a move, the earth-shattering sound of the cannon resounded throughout the imperial capital. Kurome also recovered from her sluggishness and realized that Dustless was so close to her. Her pretty face turned red, and she instantly retracted her neck. Which blind bastard is it that's spouting nonsense? Dustless turned around, and the roaring sound landed beside him. If Dustless didn't dodge quickly, he was afraid that he would eat a mouthful of soil. At the same time, the new base of the night raid was subjected to large-scale artillery bombardment. Boom boom boom. The earth-shattering roar of the cannons lasted for more than 10 minutes before it stopped. The base of the night raid had turned into a pile of rubble. Fortunately, everyone had hidden in the first place, so there were no major problems and they had escaped this fatal attack. Who the hell attacked us? Looking at the ruins of the scorched earth, Boss Najenda was furious. She was discussing the secret plan to attack the imperial capital with Isdeth. Who knew that the artillery bombardment came from the sky? There is no doubt that this is definitely not the Empire. Isdeth was decisive and sure. She had been fighting for a long time and was very familiar with artillery. Then there is only one possibility. These people who ambushed us. Maybe everyone is very surprised, but it seems that there is only one possibility. The people who ambushed us are the Revolutionary Army. Dustless said something shocking. Impossible. Not only the boss Najenda, but also the other members were full of doubts. They all denied Dustless's ridiculous idea. After all, they belonged to the Revolutionary Army. How could their own people attack their own people? However, Isdeth's eyes had a strange luster. After hearing Dustless's answer, she did not rush to deny it like others. She knew that Dustless was not the kind of person who spoke without thinking. After thinking carefully for a while, she decisively stood on the side of Dustless and nodded. Although I don't want to admit it, so far, only the Revolutionary Army can gather so many troops. The imperial capital is now going to collapse, and everyone is in danger. Not to mention that there is no such elite force. Even if there is, Minister Onesta will definitely use it to protect the imperial capital. Isdeth's analysis was orderly, and what she said was reasonable. Everyone intended to refute, but there was no corresponding plan. If the imperial capital couldn't do it, only the most powerful revolutionary army could do it. Boom boom boom. And the next hysterical roar spread through the void and fell into the ears of all the members of the night raid. Kill these damn traitors, they even colluded with Isdeth behind the revolutionary army, they deserve to be killed. Kill all the traitors. Kill the men, kill the women. Ha ha ha. The new country doesn't need garbage like the night raid, let's kill them together. All kinds of angry voices came out from the mouths of the black shadows. Najenda and other members of the night raid were shocked. They didn't expect the well-trained revolutionary army to be so disgusting at the moment. They were no different from the garbage of the Empire. You don't have to be surprised. I have told you before. With the passage of time, no matter what material it is, it will slowly decay and age. It can't escape the carving of time. The Empire is no exception, and the rising revolutionary army is no exception. Fighting with each other is the nature of human beings. It will never perish, unless all the human beings in the world can be destroyed. Dustless said. His tone was particularly persuasive. It was like the beginning of the Empire. It was also honest, but with the passage of time, it was also old and dirty. Damn it! Are we just going to wait helplessly for death? I am not reconciled. Under everyone's surprised gaze, mine decisively raised her taigu. Why don't you give me a chance to explain? Do you have to fight with me? Negenda looked sad. She did not expect the revolutionary army to hate his death so much. No, don't you understand? This is not the reason of his death. Dustless noticed that Lubbock and Tatsumi stared at his death with a slightly disgusted look, and explained the reason in one sentence. Our night raid is the dark side of the revolutionary army. All the evil things are done by us, so this group of guys wants to kill us, and then push the blame to the night raid. When the voice fell, the faces of the members of the night raid all changed. They were desperate to the revolutionary army in an instant. They paid for the revolution wholeheartedly. They did not expect that this group of benevolent revolutionary army was so vicious at the moment. They treated the night raid as a chess piece. Perhaps the basic purpose was as Dustless said, they used his death as an excuse to wipe out the night raid. All the darkness of the new country was the scapegoat of the night raid, and the revolutionary army could wash themselves clean. By the way, everyone seems to have a huge loophole that has been selectively forgotten. The new base of the night raid was exposed. Don't you think it's strange? Chapter 1663. Why was the base exposed? All the members were stunned. Then they nodded as if they woke up from a dream. Due to the sudden betrayal of the revolutionary army, everyone was tangled in the issue of the revolutionary army for a while and ignored this crucial issue. The previous night raid was attacked by his death, and the original base was reduced to scorched ruins. Now the new base was changed. The boss Negenda did not rush to inform the revolutionary army. Then the question came. How did the revolutionary army know? There is a traitor among us. Stretching, Dustless told the amazing truth, and at the same time, his eyes swept across the faces of the members of the night raid, and a special figure came into view. Tatsumi? At this moment of depression, Dustless suddenly called out Tatsumi's name. What's with your eyes? What do you want to express? Do you suspect that I am the traitor? Tatsumi was angry and yelled at Dustless. Please pay attention to your wording, remember to have evidence, otherwise it is just false accusation. It didn't matter what Wuxia said, but everyone looked at Tatsumi. What are you nervous about? I just called your name. I didn't seem to say that you are the traitor who betrayed us. Dustless slightly loosened his shoulders and showed a guilty expression. You are insinuating. Tatsumi had been cheated by Dustless so many times that he had a shadow in his heart. We will talk about these things later. At present, we have defeated the revolutionary army temporarily. The boss Negenda pinched the cigarette, but she also knew that there was a mole in the night raid at the moment. Teske, you are really decisive, Negenda. His death touched her chin and was quite surprised. She didn't expect Negenda to turn hostile. There is nothing to be surprised about. I can't take everyone's life. Negenda waved her hand, and then all the members of the night raid were dispatched this time. The only difference was that the target of the attack was no longer the decaying empire, but the revolutionary army. Time passed by, about an hour or so. The night raid successfully repelled the invading revolutionary army, and their own losses were minimal or even negligible. In the evening, everyone rushed back to the base, looking exhausted. Being stabbed in the back by one's own people was not only physically tiring, but also a heavy blow to one's spirit. No one would be able to accept the fact that their faith had suddenly betrayed them one day, and they would even feel resentment. We are in the same boat now, Negenda. Isdeth crossed her long white legs and sat lazily on the sofa. She held a wine glass in her hand and gently shook the red liquid in the glass elegantly. Gulp. Then Isdeth drank it up and praised. Not bad, the taste is very special and the taste is very mellow. I didn't expect you to have such a good wine in the night raid. Negenda. Bring me a few more bottles. This smell is somewhat familiar. Smelling the remaining fragrance in the air, Dustless looked at Isdeth, and his expression suddenly froze. Miss Isdeth, the wine tastes good, but I want to know where you got it? I got it in the kitchen. I took it when I met it, but it's strange that it's only half a bottle. Isdeth blurted out. Then she looked at Dustless in surprise, and seemed to understand something. She smiled proudly and poured the bottle into her mouth, and she did not forget to satirize. Dustless, don't even think about drinking, this is the last bit. Hee. If you want to drink, you can take my bottle and lick it. After the voice fell, Isdeth poured all the remaining red liquid in the bottle into her mouth. You misunderstood me. Dustless heard the words and immediately said helplessly, Mrs. Death, I forgot to tell you just now, your half bottle of wine is actually what I drank yesterday, and you are so hungry. Do you like my saliva so much? Poochie. Death, who was still proud, suddenly changed her face. All the red wine that she had just swallowed into her lungs was sprayed out. Her face was gloomy and gloomy. In particular, Dustless's sentence, "Do you like my saliva so much?" was particularly harsh in Isteth's ears. "Do you think I will believe such vulgar jokes?" Isteth asked with a pale face. At this moment, Scarlet Eye suddenly stood up and interrupted, and said with a red face, "Mrs. Death, Dustless is telling the truth. This wine was bought by him and me in the capital for a mission, and we were going to—" Speaking of this, Scarlet Eye was more embarrassed, and said embarrassedly, "Dustless said that he was going to use it for Tatsumi, and he also put special seasoning in it. Grumble." At the same time, Isteth's stomach growled very cooperatively. "You win." Aware of the abnormality of her body, Isteth glared at Dustless and quickly ran to the bathroom. "What did you put in it?" Tatsumi asked with a chill all over his body. "It's just a few packs of laxatives." Dustless's face was full of pity. His intention was to kill Tatsumi, but who knew that the greediest Death would take it away? "Well, what do you think of the traitor inside?" Najenda clenched her hands into fists, and her tone was obviously angry and a little murderous. "Hey, boss, don't worry. I have found the evidence of the behind-the-scenes manipulator." Dustless smiled mysteriously, and the curve of his mouth was full of deep meaning. "Are you sure?" Najenda and others asked in surprise. A traitor was hiding in the dark and staring at their activities. Thinking of it, everyone had a lingering fear and uneasiness. They couldn't help but have goosebumps. This sense of oppression was far greater than the deterrence of the enemy. Only ghosts knew when this secret snake would stab them. They were not afraid of a godlike enemy, but they were afraid of a pig-like teammate. Chapter 1664. At night, the sky gradually became cold, and everyone went back to sleep one after another. In Dustless's bedroom, he was lying lazily on the quilt, his eyes were rolling, and his deep black eyes were full of cunning. Who was the undercover this time? In fact, Dustless didn't know, or it was just a coincidence. There was no suspicious person inside the night attack, and it could barely be understood as a coincidence that the Revolutionary Army discovered the night attack on the new base. Hee. It's a pity not to take advantage of such a good opportunity. Dustless smiled grimly, and his cheeks flashed a gloomy murderous look. If there was no opportunity, he could create it. Dustless could take advantage of this opportunity to kill Tatsumi and put the blame on him. What's more, Tatsumi has this motive. Dustless murmured coldly, and he made up his mind to push all the causes and consequences to Tatsumi. It was better to kill this eyesore. Creak. It was also at this time that Dustless suddenly heard the sound of the door being pushed open, and he immediately pretended to be asleep, and then he saw the hockey spread out like water ripples. It seems to be Death. Even with his eyes closed, Dustless felt who it was from the unique temperament. The closed eyes opened, and the person who appeared in the eyes was Death in pajamas. No, it was too much to say that it was pajamas. Isteth's white underwear was open. Her proud cleavage was exposed, and most of her two huge meatballs could be seen clearly. "What's the matter? You weren't seen when you came, right? Maybe I'll be gossiped about. Also, you're not retaliating against me, are you? So are you ready to be humiliated by me again?" Dustless stared at Isteth's delicate face and asked. "You know the answer, don't talk nonsense. Didn't you expect this scene? The day I begged you. I remember you said it last time." Isteth snorted softly. "Did I?" Dustless pretended to widen his eyes innocently and scratched his head embarrassedly, as if to say that he didn't know anything. "You're too forgetful." Isteth sat on the quilt, staring at Dustless with her watery eyes and said, "Lend me your strength, and I can help you do everything you want to do." "Is that why you joined the night raid, to get close to me?" Isteth nodded and crossed her arms. "Why do you think I joined the night raid?" "Don't tell me. Do you think I've been influenced?" This kind of thinking was very naive. The Empire was not a good thing, and so was the Revolutionary Army. The winner could decide everything. Evil and justice are not important, the key is power. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really thought that Isteth wanted to repent. Who knew that this girl joined the Night Raid assassin organization in order to get close to him? You are right. The winner can decide everything. The key is that you are just a stray dog now. You don't even have the ability of Taigu. How can you talk about winning? It's too funny. Dustless raised his tone deliberately to attack Isdeth. That's why I came to you for help. Isdeth blinked and said with a serious expression, give me the power to destroy them. From now on we are allies. No, no. Dustless shook his head quickly and sneered. Mrs. Death, do you really think others are fools? My power can give you stronger strength. But do you want to get something for nothing? Don't you think you are too ridiculous? You want to get my power without paying. There is no such cheap thing in the world. If you want to get my power, you must come up with the conditions that I am interested in. That's right. Isdeth lowered her head without saying yes or no. If you want to get other people's things, who will be fooled if you don't give bait? What's more, Dustless was not the kind of idiot who had a lot of money. After thinking for a while, under Dustless's surprised gaze, Isdeth made an amazing move. The almost transparent pajamas as thin as a cicada's wing was cut from Isdeth's delicate body. The delicate skin and the body that made people daydream were all exposed in the sight of Dustless. The body that made people commit crimes could be seen at a glance. It attracted the nerves of Dustless. Cough, cough. Dustless was slightly stunned after seeing this, his face flashed with embarrassment, and he reluctantly took back his sight. Give me power, this body is yours, you can do whatever you want, I will never resist. Finally, Isdeth approached Dustless and blew a hot breath in his ear. You can do whatever you want. I will fully cooperate with you. Since you think so clearly, then I will agree with you this deal. Staring at Isdeth's clear eyes, Dustless snapped his fingers, then a strange fruit appeared in his hand. It was the devil fruit, and it was the ice-cold fruit of Logia. What is this? Don't tell me that it can let me regain the strength of the past. Isdeth pointed to the devil fruit with suspicion. Eat it, you will get the previous strength. No, to be exact, you will get the strength beyond the previous. Akiji's ice-cold fruit is far more powerful than the Taigu, demon god's manifestation, devil's essence. Dustless explained, staring at Isdeth and said, but there is a condition, you must promise me, otherwise everything is in vain, and what I said before does not count. My body? You can take it. Isdeth said calmly. The concept of the weak being prey to the strong had already been deeply rooted. For her, the weak deserved to be dominated by the strong. Not this. Dustless stared at Isdeth angrily. She thought he was crazy. Dustless walked to Isdeth's side and said something to her in a low voice. After a while, Isdeth, who understood, had a strange expression. Are you sure you want to do this? Chapter 1665. It was no wonder that Isdeth was so strange. Dustless's request was to join hands to kill Tatsumi. Does that kind of small character need my cooperation? Isdeth was puzzled. She did not expect Dustless to make such a fuss. There was no need to know a small character. After all, he was just a small character. Tell me. After thinking for a while, Isdeth did not refuse in a hurry. Come closer. Dustless smiled and let Isdeth come closer. Finally, he told her his plan. After listening to it, Isdeth was immediately embarrassed. No wonder Tatsumi hates you so much. If it were me, maybe I would die with you. Isdeth rubbed her temple and looked at Dustless with a hopeless look. So what? Dustless curled his lips and did not care about Isdeth's contempt. He asked directly, so Miss Isdeth, what is your choice? I promise you. After a little hesitation, Isdeth gritted her teeth and agreed to Dustless's condition. Take it. Dustless smiled slightly, then handed the ice-cold fruit in his hand to Isdeth and said lazily, repeat again, this is the ice-cold fruit of Logia. Its ability is far more powerful than demon god's appearance, devil's essence. Its ability is also as its name. It can freeze all creatures or non-matter. The scale is more powerful than Taigu, but how powerful it is depends on the host. Do you mean this fruit is called devil fruit? Isdeth's eyes were full of light. She was quite curious about this strange fruit. It was the first time to encounter such a special fruit in her life. Yes, I am the flash person who ate the flash fruit. Most of the physical attacks do not work on me. This devil fruit also has the same ability. It can be immune to most of the physical attacks, and it can grew. However, before Dustless finished speaking, Isdeth grabbed the ice-cold fruit. She was afraid that Dustless would regret, so she simply swallowed the fruit into her mouth. Fuck, aren't you afraid of choking? Dustless stared at Esteth speechlessly. He did not expect her to act so fast. Woo woo woo. A strange sound came out of Estetha's mouth. Although it was not clear what she was saying, the general meaning could be seen from her proud face. What if you regret it? How do you feel? Do you feel any changes in your physique? Dustless changed the topic and asked with interest. It's disgusting. Esteth had a bitter look on her face. Her delicate face had turned into a bitter gourd color. It seemed that she had suffered a lot. You're still complaining? Glaring at Esteth snappily, Wuxia scolded. This is a priceless treasure, it's disgusting. Before he finished speaking, a cold light surged out of Estetha's body. Ka ka ka. The entire room instantly turned into a world of ice and snow, and the cold aura lowered the surrounding temperature by hundreds of degrees. Not bad. Feeling the changes in her body, Esteth was pleasantly surprised. She lost her power and regained it. Especially when she gained more power than before, she was extremely happy. Then with a slight thought, the cold air emitted from Estetha's body calmed down. Good control. Is it because you have been playing with ice for a long time? Dustless's eyes flashed with surprise, and he smiled with satisfaction. Although it is not as good as Akiji for the time being, it should be no problem to surpass him. Who is this Akiji you are talking about? Is he also a person with this ice-cold fruit ability? Esteth blinked and asked curiously. Yes, but to be exact, he is your predecessor, he is dead. Dustless waved and said, and immediately stared at Esteth with aggressive eyes. I remember you just said that if I let you regain your former strength, your body will be mine, right? In that case, it would be impolite for me to decline. Staring at the fragrant Esteth, Dustless did not hesitate to rush up. At first, he thought that Esteth would resist. Unexpectedly, this girl not only did not refuse, but also showed a different kind of wildness. She wanted to counterattack Dustless and press Dustless under her body. After a short period of absent-mindedness, Dustless naturally would not let Esteth do as she wished, and he suppressed Esteth strongly. The next morning, when Dustless and Esteth opened their eyes, it was almost noon of the next day. What a shameless night. The bright sunshine sprinkled into the room. Dustless subconsciously blocked the light with his hand, and looked at the outside world through the weak gap between his 5 fingers. Is it noon? Dustless just got up and put on his clothes, but the soft and boneless arms hugged him tightly. What's the matter, Esteth? Staring at the delicate face, an inexplicable tiredness swept through his heart. Dustless retracted the quilt again and hugged the plump body in his arms. With his eyes closed, Dustless said casually, remember, you have to cooperate with me to kill Tatsumi, and push the identity of Undercover to him. This is the content of the deal. I will fulfill it even if you don't say it. Esteth lay lazily on Wu Chen's body. Both of them didn't have clothes to cover their bodies, and they were naked. I have a new plan. Estetha's eyes flashed with slyness, and she said straightforwardly, you are too strong, I seem to be no match for you in the end, no matter how hard I try. This is true in all aspects. Esteth finally added a sentence full of deep meaning. Until now, her body was still painful, and there were obvious claw marks on her white skin. It's good that you know. Holding his head, Dustless smiled. So, speaking of this, Esteth became more sly, holding Dustless's neck. Let's have a baby, and use your genes to defeat you. Is this a good plan? Chapter 1666. It's too vulgar. Staring at Estetha's eyes, Dustless mocked her unceremoniously. The idea is beautiful, but the reality is often the opposite, but it's understandable that you can think so. Although this method is brainless, it's the only way out. So be it. Dustless gave a barely good evaluation. His direct descendants would inherit one of his many powers, such as chakra, or some dojutsu. Until now, his 2 daughters were the same. Then let's have a happy baby. Dustless, who was going to get up, was suddenly tired after Estetha's torment. He returned to the bed again and pressed Esteth down. This arrogant woman must not be merciful. When he got up again, it was already sunset, and the sky was faintly dark. These 2 guys. At dinner, everyone found the abnormality of Esteth and Dustless. They didn't say much and didn't make unnecessary explanations, but some careful people still saw the clues. Could it be? Staring at Isteth's face, Boss Nagenda's face was strange. Isteth walked lightly and even swayed. Compared with the indifference in the past, Isteth now had a trace of unconcealable seductiveness. Dustless is really capable. He can even deceive Isteth into his bed. Nagenda stared at Dustless and whispered, secretly giving him a thumbs up. By the way, who is the traitor among us? I will absolutely forgive him. Nagenda patted the table seriously. Everyone was stunned and sighed that the main dish was coming. Everyone's eyes also looked at Dustless tacitly. Of course it is. Dustless smiled maliciously, and the strange sight fell on Tatsumi again. Gulp. Tatsumi's heart suddenly thumped and he said angrily, Dustless, remember it clearly. I will repeat it again. Don't look at me with this kind of suspicious eyes. The person who betrayed the night raid is not me. Who else could it be but you? Ignoring Tatsumi's quibble, Dustless cleared his throat and shamelessly pushed all the blame to Tatsumi. The person who betrayed us and revealed the news to the Revolutionary Army is Tatsumi. You're framing me. Tatsumi blushed and refuted. If it's me, please give us a suitable evidence before you say it. That's right. To catch a thief, we must have evidence. All the members, including Boss Nagenda, nodded and looked at Dustless, expecting him to show strong evidence. Isteth, take that out for everyone to see. Dustless gave Isteth a look, and the latter nodded immediately. Under everyone's surprised gaze, she immediately took out the decisive evidence. Slander. This is slander. You two are working together to frame me. Looking at the evidence presented by Isteth, Tatsumi was like a furious lion and lost his usual calmness. What if this super big pit fell on his head? He must not admit it. What's more, he didn't do it. Following Isteth's gaze, he saw that she took out a stack of thick envelopes. The general content was the details of Tatsumi's betrayal of the night raid. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. I have a way to try. Dustless stared at Tatsumi with a smile. He could only take a step back. This thing was just fabricated out of thin air, but it was not convincing enough. However, this was enough. Dustless just needed an excuse. I have an ability to extract other people's memory and put it on you to experiment. Suddenly, Dustless's mouth raised an extremely evil arc. The people whose memory was extracted by Rinnegan would eventually have the same result, either fall or become an idiot. You can do this kind of thing? Everyone was stunned when they heard the words, but Akame nodded thoughtfully and said without thinking, I remember that Dustless used this ability before. Tatsumi, you can experiment with it. Anyway, it's okay. Experiment? I'm not a lab rat. Tatsumi complained in his heart and did not hesitate to curse Akame. He immediately shook his head like a rattledrum and said loudly, I'm sorry, I refuse. Tatsumi's tone was very firm. Being a lab rat was not this group of people. Of course, it didn't matter what he said. What if something went wrong in the end? And the relationship between Dustless and himself? Thinking of this, Tatsumi shuddered. Although Akame said that there was no danger, what if there was an accident? Don't worry, at most, you will become an idiot. Wu Chen's casual words made Tatsumi feel dizzy. At the moment, Tatsumi was furious. It's easy for you to say. In a word, I refuse. Refuse? A cold voice sounded from behind Tatsumi. Turning around, it was Isteth who was extremely gloomy. Don't you understand now? No matter what, you're the most suspicious. Nonsense, I have never colluded with the Revolutionary Army. I haven't even seen their faces. Tatsumi argued and suddenly felt that he was very sad. He worked hard for the Revolutionary Army, but he didn't even see the Revolutionary Army's face. It was really a huge tragedy. If there are people who are against joining forces with me, is there anyone else besides you? Isteth held her shoulders with both hands and said disdainfully, After all, Bullet died in the hands of my subordinates. It is normal for you to hate me. Chapter 1667. Tatsumi's pupils widened. He didn't expect these two guys to cooperate so well. The tacit understanding was speechless. It was true that he hated Isteth because this guy killed Tatsumi. Of course, if Tatsumi knew that Isteth was actually just an innocent scapegoat, and the real culprit who killed Bullet was Dustless, he would definitely be choked to death. I want evidence. Again, I refuse to cooperate with the extraction of memory. Tatsumi turned his head and ignored Dustless and his death. Only idiots would cooperate. Extracting memory meant that all secrets would be controlled by Dustless. How could this be? This guy. The members of the night raid looked at each other and were secretly annoyed with Tatsumi's behavior. This guy gave people a feeling that he would not accept any conditions. Hey, Tatsumi, there is no way if you don't cooperate. Boss Najenda threw away the long smoke in her hand and stared at Tatsumi with bright eyes. Boss, do you also think that I am not a spy? I am so touched. Tatsumi was surprised when he heard the words, and his face showed a cheerful smile. Listening to Najenda's words, it seemed that she was going to let him go and stop the absurd practice of extracting memory. At the same time, he looked at Dustless, which meant, look, the boss is still on my side in the end. Favoritism. What's the strength of this guy? Why does Najenda pay so much attention to him? Dustless glanced at Najenda with a complicated expression. Then he stared at Tatsumi for a few times with an unlucky expression. After fighting for so long, I finally won a round. It's not easy. Tatsumi laughed in his heart and had a feeling of exultation. He excitedly walked to Boss Najenda. When Tatsumi was about to flatter her, Najenda grabbed his shoulder very abnormally. Tatsumi, I know you are wronged, but now is a special time. I hope you can be wronged, so, please let Dustless extract your memory. Najenda suddenly changed her face and said very seriously, don't worry, except for you who didn't betray everyone, other members will also have their memory extracted. Ha! Tatsumi stared straight at Najenda. Originally, he had intended to flatter her. After hearing these words, 100,000 crows flew over his forehead. He was in a bad mood and almost lost control of his spirit. I firmly object. Tatsumi rebuked loudly and pursed his mouth with a constipated look. He just planned to flatter Najenda, but she betrayed him in the next second. Dustless, come and work. Boss Najenda looked at Dustless, Tatsumi's feelings, pointed at him and said, be quick, the next person whose memory is extracted will be Lubbock. Don't worry, leave it, in 1 minute. Tatsumi's Najenda, and Tatsumi, with Tatsumi, and step. Tatsumi's head was dizzy, and his mind was spinning. What he heard was not 1 minute, but 1 minute to turn himself into a super idiot. In fact, Dustless did plan to destroy this guy's spirit and make him a retard. Let go of me. Tatsumi suddenly smashed Najenda's hand, looked at the glass window, and jumped out without hesitation under everyone's stunned gaze. Catch Tatsumi quickly, don't let him run away, this kid is guilty. Boss Najenda's face was replaced by a fierce look after the corner of her mouth twitched. Then other members of the night raid, as well as Boss Najenda, all joined the task of arresting Tatsumi. This is really a disaster. It seems that it is not in your plan. I remember that you just planned to turn Tatsumi into an idiot, but this kid ran away. Death sat lazily on the sofa, looking up at the ceiling. The snow-white meatball almost broke out of her clothes. No, this is better. Although it is a little different from my plan, the ending is more perfect. Dustless suddenly smiled strangely and said in a cold voice, in this way, even if I kill Tatsumi by accident, others have nothing to say. Death raised her head and snorted, despicable man. Despicable? Dustless's calm eyes fell on Death's head, nodded and agreed. Maybe, but it is very despicable. But often, despicable people laugh at the end, right? For example, Minister Ernest. That makes sense. Death nodded after a slight silence. It was because Minister Ernest was despicable enough that he lived freely and killed all his political enemies. Do it. Don't let them beat you. If you meet Tatsumi, kill him for me, don't show mercy. After the voice fell, Dustless's body disappeared. He turned into a ray of light and went straight to the distant sky. In an instant, he surpassed Najenda and others and followed Tatsumi closely. He chased after Tatsumi and constantly narrowed the distance between the two sides. Today's Tatsumi was not the same as before. The degree of control of Ghost Haunt was also perfect. It was not the peak, but at least he could perfectly hide his breath. After he launched the stealth skill, The members of the night raid instantly became blind. Even if Tatsumi was beside everyone, they could not perceive his existence. Sure enough, the night raid is still not suitable for me. I should go inside the Revolutionary Army. It is more suitable for me. After becoming a big official, I can also change the future of the village. Now that the boss and the Revolutionary Army have parted ways, the Revolutionary Army must be lacking a master like me. With such an idea, Tatsumi rushed to the base of the Revolutionary Army, but ignored the flash behind him. Chapter 1668. The speed of light was incredible and beyond people's cognition. It was not an exaggeration to describe it as fleeting. When moving forward, there would be a huge roar, and the vibration made people's eardrums hurt. Who is it? With such a huge movement, Tatsumi also noticed it at the first time. As soon as he turned around, a slap flew over. Bang bang bang. Kakaka. Tatsumi's head was hit a few times by an extremely violent fist, and he could still hear the sound of kakaka. His nose and teeth were broken by the owner of this light. Ouch, it hurts. Tatsumi's eyes were filled with tears due to the pain. He covered his old face with both hands and rolled on the ground in pain. Who did it? Who is it? A voice full of hatred jumped out from Tatsumi's throat. He finally escaped from the wolf's den of the night raid. He thought that he would have no worries after joining the Revolutionary Army. Who knew that God didn't give him face? He didn't escape far before an unexpected disaster came. Tatsumi, you heartless thing. You want to run away after taking the things of the night raid? At least take off, haunted spirit, and give it to me. The light turned into reality and condensed into a handsome face. The person who came had a jade-like face. His gentle face was as warm as the sun, and his smile made people involuntarily open their hearts. Only the cold eyes were as terrifying as the devil. It was not difficult to see that this person was like a smiling tiger. He was temperamental, and no one could figure out what he was thinking. Dustless. Tatsumi was furious when he saw it. His eyes were filled with hatred when he met his enemy. Before escaping the detection range of the night raid, Tatsumi unlocked the haunted spirit armor. Now because of the appearance of Dustless, Tatsumi once again used his trump card. Due to the deep resentment between the two, Haunted Spirit felt the anger in Tatsumi's soul and mutated. The dazzling light spread out. At the waist, a pair of broken wings flashed. They were full of incomplete traces like broken scrap iron. But even so, Tatsumi's momentum was several times stronger than before. Kakaka! The ground beneath his feet also began to crack chaotically. Yo! Seeing this, Dustless showed a rare expression of appreciation and complimented. Your willpower is not bad. Ghost Haunt has sensed your anger and evolved. Do you hate me so much, Tatsumi? Do I need you to tell me whether I hate you or not? I didn't mean to go against you, but you always make things difficult for me and suppress me. Today, it's time to end the grudge. Clenching his fist, Tatsumi's confidence soared. Dustless smiled and said disdainfully, Do you think you've improved just because you've grown trash wings? Big mistake. Rotten oranges will always be rotten oranges. Swish. Swish. Just as he finished speaking, Dustless's figure flashed and pounced over with a strong pressure. Still so fast. Tatsumi caught the afterimage coming toward him and looked cautious. Then, he carefully observed for a while and said in a relaxed tone, But this time, I can see your figure clearly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Tatsumi also rushed out without fear. With a fearless expression, he rushed toward Dustless. His huge fist was clenched into a fist and he punched with all his strength. Bang bang bang. In the air, a white shock wave broke out and lifted everything around. The ground under their feet collapsed and turned into a big pit in an instant. It hurts. The two fought with pure strength. Tatsumi's face was pale and he tried to hide his twitching arm because of the pain. As small as a grain of sand. Tatsumi concealed it quite cleverly. Dustless could still hear his rapid breathing several times faster. No matter how heavy the sand is, when the storm comes, he can only let it go. The other hand suddenly picked up and aimed at Tatsumi's eyebrows. A very destructive light condensed in an instant. He flicked his finger. Laser! So fast. Tatsumi's pupils suddenly shrank. When the light flashed, He felt that something was wrong and he moved to the left. Gotcha! Although Tatsumi's speed could be called lightning, he was still a little inferior to Dustless. The armor on his face collapsed in an instant and turned into 4 or 5 fragments. I just lost? Tatsumi was still in shock and subconsciously touched his cheek. Although the penetrating light did not penetrate his head, it made Tatsumi feel the fear of a brush with death. That feeling of almost stepping into the netherworld with a single step was truly oppressive. God did not abandon me. Scratching his palm, Tatsumi, who felt the stinging pain, exhaled heavily. Just as he was about to prepare for the battle, a ray of golden light rushed forward. Pucci! There was no time to dodge. Tatsumi's whole body was penetrated by the light, leaving a scorched scar on his chest. Sorry, Tatsumi. I really hate you. Maybe you will know why I am targeting you. In fact, there is no special reason. It's just an instinct for hunters to kill beasts when they encounter them. That's all. You. Boss Negenda can't order you to kill me. You are taking revenge. Tatsumi vomited blood and roared at Dustless. His mouth was full of blood traces. He was like a vampire. Tatsumi, listen to me clearly. In my dictionary of life there is no such thing as order. I follow Negenda's order just to pass the time. If she makes me feel bored one day, I can still kill the night raid. No one in this world can give me orders. After the voice fell, Dustless rotated the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword condensed by the glint fruit a few times. Tatsumi's internal organs were instantly crushed. Chapter 1669. Pucci. The severe tingling spread all over his body. Tatsumi's face was as pale as paper, and he was sweating like rain. He felt that his vitality was fading rapidly, and a sense of powerlessness deep in his soul swept everywhere in an instant. His eyes even saw the Grim Reaper who came to kill him with a sickle. In this short period of time, even Tatsumi's black hair turned white a lot. You killed your companion, the boss will definitely not let you go. Tatsumi shouted with a face full of hatred. Soon, we will meet in hell and fight again in the next life. Tut tut, your hope is doomed to fail. Dustless raised the corner of his mouth and smiled. Kill your companion? To tell you the truth, your good brother Bullet was killed by me. But what is the result? I still live happily until now, but you tut tut, your appearance is really miserable. Seeing Tatsumi was so stubborn, Dustless stabbed Tatsumi's heart with the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword and penetrated deeper. Pucci! The burnt wound was full of burning smell. Tatsumi's flesh was burnt, making a disgusting smell. Bah, this smell is disgusting. How many days have you not taken a bath? Dustless looked disgusted and kicked Tatsumi out. You damn guy, I will not forgive you even if I become a ghost. Tatsumi looked at Dustless with hatred. His scarlet eyes remembered Dustless in his mind, and then he was unwilling to die. Idiot, there are many people who hate me. Who do you think you are? Glancing at Tatsumi's body faintly, Dustless's pupils flashed a sharp light. Amaterasu! Tatsumi's whole body burned with black flames, his body was slowly swallowed and gradually disappeared. Even Dustless did not let go of his taigu, haunted by evil spirits. He destroyed all of it and burned it into black residue. You are really ruthless. You deserve to be. Istetha's delicate body flashed to Dustless's side. She looked at Tatsumi's disappearing body coldly. Only this black flame made her feel the fatal threat. How many trump cards does this man have that I don't know about? Her bright eyes were even more lonely. Isdeth felt powerless for a deep-sea shark like Dustless, and at the same time, she became more firm with Dustless's plan to make a human being. I'll borrow your seed to destroy you. Isdeth felt that this plan was quite good. At least it was the only strategy she could think of to deal with Dustless. Go back and say that this guy was killed by the Revolutionary Army, and the taiga was also taken away. Dustless took back his sight. He finally left Istetha's back. What if I expose your plot to kill Tatsumi? Staring at Dustless's cold face, Isdeth pointed to her chin and teased. If that's the case, you will be betrayed by everyone. Extremely bored, Dustless glanced at Isdeth. He said with a resolute tone, if you want to report me, you will not gossip here. Moreover, compared with each other, Negenda believes me more. I can totally bite back and say that you plot to frame me and seduce me to sleep with you. You're really shameless. Death was stunned, looking at Dustless, who was not blushing and breathless. This guy looked like the kind of person who was used to lying. He was so calm. It's time to end it. Immediately destroy this decaying transition, and then take you to see a new world. In the ruins of the night raid, in the temporary room. Is Tatsumi dead? It's a pity that he has worked for us for so long. Hearing the news of Tatsumi's death, Nagenda's face was full of regret, but she was not sad. Yes, he wanted to join the Revolutionary Army, and I caught him. In the end, he couldn't stand my torture. He told us all his plan to frame us, and his body was eaten by the dangerous species. Dustless said seriously and carefully, it was very bewitching. It was obviously made up, but everyone had a kind of immersive experience, witnessing the scene of Tatsumi's betrayal in the night raid. A traitor is just a traitor, his death is not regrettable. Mine curled her lips disdainfully, her mouth was full of disgust and disgust. I was blind. Leonie also had a black face. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She wanted to skin Tatsumi alive. If Tatsumi was in front of her at this moment, she might whip his body. I didn't expect him to be a traitor. I really should kill him myself. Akame's taigu was pulled out of the scabbard. I didn't know that the guy Tatsumi was a traitor. We were all careless. Chelsea had a lollipop in her mouth, and the cold light flashed in her eyes. For traitors, no matter who they were, they had no good feelings. Forget it. Tatsumi's matter is over. The next step of the plan is to destroy the Empire. We will arrange the plan ourselves. In the future, the Night Raid and the Revolutionary Army will be the enemy. When saying this, the boss Nagenda's tone was full of confidence. Although there were only a few people in the Night Raid, the soldiers of the Night Raid or the Empire were not as powerful as the members of the Night Raid. With our strength, we can completely kill the Empire's army, and then annihilate the Revolutionary Army. No force can stop the advance of the Night Raid. Speaking of this, Dustless's tone suddenly stopped. The Empire and the Revolutionary Army were finished, and a new ruler must be needed to control the Empire. There was no doubt that Dustless was the most suitable person. After all, the person with the bigger fist had the final say, but he was not interested in being the emperor. He still released Infinite Tsukuyomi to continue to destroy the world. Chapter 1670. At this moment, the imperial capital was getting dark. It was the opposite of the unprecedentedly prosperous city in the past. The Revolutionary Army set fire everywhere. The empire had already been crumbling and could collapse at any time. The only comfort was that the members of the Revolutionary Army and the Night Raid were not in a hurry to attack and collapse the imperial capital. This also made everyone a little more comforted. At least, Minister Ernest was extremely happy. Gulp! Inside the palace, the luxury was not reduced. Minister Ernest still had dinner with the emperor as usual. Especially Minister Ernest, the speed of eating meat was more exaggerated than before. He was afraid that he would not be able to eat meat when he went to hell. Your Majesty, you don't have to worry. It's only a matter of time before those who dare to provoke the Empire are suppressed by your power. The strongest taigu, supreme taser, is the ultimate existence of God. People as strong as General Death were defeated by you in the end. Minister Onesta sucked up to the king while he hurriedly swept through the dazzling array of food on the table. I hope so. This time, the little emperor frowned. He was not as easy to fool as before. He was scared and said, but now except for the imperial capital, we have lost the other territories of the empire. Sooner or later, I will become the sinner of the empire's destruction. Minister Ernest was stunned when he heard the words. He did not expect that this stupid emperor would say such a thing. He could only continue to fool him. Your Majesty, you don't have to care about those unruly people. As long as you control Supreme Taser, you can crush everything. Just like how you suppressed the traitor General Death. Defeat all the enemies. Defeat all the enemies? Boom, boom, boom. The sound of dead silence fell. Then a black shadow fell from the sky. The interior of the luxurious palace suddenly trembled, and there were cracks around the walls. Do you want to die by breaking into the palace? Come on, kill this guy for me. Minister Onesta, who was frightened, roared. The moment the tremor appeared, he hurriedly crawled under the table, losing all his face. Damn it! Minister Ernest looked at him angrily. After seeing the person who came, he immediately cried, "Your Majesty, this evil man named Dustless in front of you is the culprit of the collapse of the empire." "You?" The young emperor stared at Dustless with an ignorant look. Obviously, he had been deceived and manipulated by Minister Onesta. No to the young emperor. Minister Onesta was his father. The guards of such a huge palace have all been annihilated. If you have any skills, take them out. I'll give you a chance to bloom. Then you can atone for your sins with your deaths. You want me to atone for my crimes with my death? When the emperor heard the arrogant and disrespectful tone, he flew into a rage. A special energy fluctuation appeared on his body, and the room started to tremble and collapse at an accelerated rate. Bang! With a loud bang, the palace turned into ruins. The dark and oppressive room was lit up quite a bit. Looking up, it turned out that a gentle light was descending from the sky. Eho! After a few dozen seconds, the bright sky darkened once again. A black shadow that was dozens of meters tall turned from nothingness to reality, and its mighty and extraordinary figure was exposed to the world. What the hell is that? A group of members of the night raid who raided the palace looked up at the sky. Looking at the unparalleled height and the domineering temperament, their scalps were numb. I heard from Dustless that this is the strongest Taigu, Supreme Taser. I didn't expect it to have such a powerful power. With such a terrifying height, not to mention that it is a Taigu, even if it is a worm, it can turn the world upside down when it moves. Akame and others were horrified. Even if Dustless had given them a precaution before, they were still shocked by the thunder at this moment. The oppression brought by this super monster was too deep. Just a casual glance from him would make one feel as if there was a sharp blade on one's back. It wasn't just the night attack. All the residents of the empire felt as if there was a huge guillotine on their foreheads. They all ran out of the empire with all their might. Dustless, is that the strongest Taigu you said? Is it also the first Taigu? Only the inheritor of the royal blood can open the Supreme Taser? Its appearance seems to be more exaggerated and tall than last time. Looking at the behemoth, even if she saw it last time and fought with it once, Isdeth also lost her mind for a while, and her eyes were empty. She didn't know when she had already stood beside Dustless. Ha! You two damn guys. This time you are going to die. You will definitely die, and Supreme Taser will destroy everything. Minister Ernest laughed crazily, and even danced like a child. What is our result? You can't see it, and your current identity is just a stray dog. Don't you think you are too talkative? With a flash, Dustless turned into a huge light and arrived in front of Minister Ernest. Staring at his fat body, he quickly waved out a few light beams in succession. Poochie! 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 The blood flew, and the ground was instantly filled with purple-red blood stains. Looking up, Minister Ernest's arms and legs were cut off, and the blood dyed the whole ground red. The air was smelly. It seemed to be smelled by the purple-red blood. Ah! It hurts. Your Majesty, revenge for me. Kill this bastard. Minister Ernest screamed miserably. The hysterical voice was full of endless hatred for Dustless. Tut-tut. Dying casually is too easy for you, old dog. Isdeth, I will tell you a good way to torture people. Find a large porcelain bottle, throw Minister Ernest into it, put poisonous snakes, rats and scorpions in it, and then put honey on Minister Ernest's body, and finally, put tens of thousands of ants in it. Puff! Dustless hadn't finished his words when the old guy fainted. Looking carefully, his breath had disappeared. It wasn't hard to see from his frightened face that this old guy was scared to death. Chapter 1671. This scene was too sudden. Even Isdeth didn't expect such a dramatic change. Minister Ernest, who was regarded as a devil by everyone, was scared to death by the absurdity. Hee hee. The torture methods you said are good. We are really the same kind of people, Dustless. Isdeth's mouth was flirting with a smile, looking at Dustless's eyes, full of emotions. This guy. Staring at Isdeth's evil eyes, the spring-watery eyes almost melted Dustless's heart. It was very warm, but Dustless was not happy. Instead, he was a little creepy. It seemed that Isdeth intended to test the methods just mentioned on Dustless once. You dare to? Inside Supreme Taser, the Emperor's indignant roar sounded, followed by a dark red halo, suddenly appeared in the boundless void, and the overwhelming storm swept the entire imperial capital. Damn it, that guy is desperate. Let's retreat. Najenda saw the flash in Supreme Taser's mouth, and her face was full of fear. The power of the lingering fear could be clearly felt hundreds of meters away. Her skin was about to be torn, and even blood could not help but overflow through the pores. Everyone's heart was uneasy and full of despair. At their level, if they were hit by Supreme Taser, their bodies would be shattered. Hee hee. You dare to use the candlelight to make a fool of yourself? No wonder this country is going to be finished. Even the Emperor is an idiot. Dustless sarcastically said. You bastard. Inside the Supreme Taser, the veins on the Emperor's forehead bulged. He clenched his teeth and spat out the 4 words. Killing the Emperor's father, Minister Ernest, was a huge blow to the young Emperor's mental state. Boom boom boom. The originally small energy ball, in an instant, responded to the Emperor's anger and became bigger. Go to hell, traitor of the Empire. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The Emperor's scream fell, the huge red energy ball cut through the void, the light of destruction was about to engulf Dustless. Boom boom boom. Because it was too powerful, before it even landed on the ground, the hurricane created by the beam of light had already destroyed a massive number of buildings. The bustling imperial city was left in a mess. Staring at the falling light under everyone's puzzled gaze, Wuxia lazily raised his right arm, clenched his hand into a fist, and made a posture of preparing to attack. It seemed that he wanted to defeat the light with his bare hands. Could it be that this fellow wants to catch it with his bare hands? The members of the night raid widened their eyes, including Isdeth. They were all surprised. She once had a confrontation with Supreme Taser. The result was very unfortunate. At that time, Isdeth, who was sealed by Minister Ernest's trick, was not the opponent of this behemoth at all. Therefore, Isdeth was quite familiar with the power of Supreme Taser. Its strength was unprecedented. Almost no living species in the sea, land, and air could compete with it. Bring it on. Dustless glanced at the incoming attack. His right arm was covered with armament hockey. His feet slammed on the ground, and he jumped up and flew towards the flash. Boom boom boom. The light hit Dustless's body. Everyone was nervous. They thought that he would be blown up by the energy beam, but the result was just the opposite. Phew phew phew. The fluctuation that stopped was sublimated again. The movement that was bigger than before was shaking. The unparalleled light did not fall this time, but rose quickly. How is it possible? It can blow that thing away. The members of the night raid were stunned. Everyone looked at the rising light. Everyone's thinking was subverted, and their brain cells were suddenly not enough. They saw that Dustless hit all the light back with his own strength. Is that guy a human being? Not to mention the power of the beam, the temperature can melt a human being, even the bones can be dismembered. Dustless actually hit it back with his mortal body. Is his body made of iron that can ignore the high temperature? No, even if the body is made of iron, it will be melted when it touches the high temperature. How hard is his body? Isdetha's small mouth was wide open, and her mouth twitched slightly. Even if she tried to hide the shock in her heart, she was still shocked and speechless. What would happen if a human was close to hundreds or even thousands of degrees Celsius? Needless to say, this person's end would definitely be nothing. But Dustless was still fine at the moment, completely ignoring the blazing high temperature. Not only that, but he also hit back with an even more powerful force. What kind of joke is this? The little Emperor, who was inside the Supreme Taser, was also taken aback. His eyeballs were about to fall out of their sockets. Retreat quickly. The Emperor panicked and quickly controlled Supreme Taser, trying to avoid the light that distorted time and space. Although the idea was beautiful, the reality was cruel and ruthless. Supreme Taser, this kind of behemoth, is similar to Susanoo. Its attack power is very strong, but its movement is slow. It can even be said to be sluggish, because this kind of move is originally used to attack the enemy, not to escape. Therefore, it was inevitable that the Emperor was hit, and he was sent flying by his own move. Boom boom boom. Attacked by its own move, Supreme Taser's head was fatally injured, and a blazing flame mushroom cloud rose, and the high temperature melted everything. Half of the majestic Supreme Taser's head was destroyed, and even its abdomen was severely injured, showing a scorched pit, and all the equipment was sunken in. Pucci! Suffering such a serious injury, the emperor inside was naturally not spared. The tyrannical power wave directly made him dizzy, and his head was dizzy, and he could fall at any time. Looking around, Supreme Taser's entire body was emitting black smoke. Chapter 1672. Boom boom boom. Supreme Taser finally became an arrow at the end of its flight. Under the horrified gaze of everyone, the huge body finally tilted at an angle. Is it over? The members of the night raid wiped their sweat and sat down at the same time. Their tense nerves also suddenly calmed down, revealing a trace of joy after surviving the disaster. It was certain that if it weren't for Dustless, they would not be crushed by the huge body of Supreme Taser. As a result, these towns didn't even leave the remains of the body. Usually when it's over, it's not over yet. The roar of the sky was everywhere, spreading to every corner of the void. Looking up, Supreme Taser, who was originally tilted, actually stood up again at an incredible angle. This is the strongest Taigu, such a huge monster. It may be destroyed by one move, especially my move. The Emperor's arrogant tone came from inside Supreme Taser. Buzz buzz buzz. In the big mouth full of fangs, there was a dark red halo again. Is this guy the type that can't be killed? When the members of the night raid saw such a scene, their faces suddenly became as pale as paper, showing fear and panic. The high-density energy ball could easily tear their bodies apart. Do you think you are big? Staring at the huge body with a sneer, Dustless sneered without hiding. If you think your body is big, you will win, you will only lose faster. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, the golden energy rushed out from Dustless's body, rising to an exaggerated height of hundreds of meters. A ferocious outline stood between the sky and the earth. The head held up the sky and the feet stepped on the ground, representing everything in the world. This guy, is this his true face? Death looked numb. She thought that the invincible figure of Supreme Taser was enough to cheat. Who knew that Dustless showed his original appearance in an instant? A samurai wearing a Tengu helmet and heavy armor suddenly appeared out of thin air like a natural disaster. This is... Everyone stared at the golden giant with their mouths agape. The giant was over 100 meters tall and was much taller than Tai Se. If one wanted to see the full appearance of this giant, they would have to look up at the starry sky at a 90-degree angle. Damn it, this guy was indeed sent by the heavens to harm the Empire. He can't be allowed to live. The others are just insignificant characters. The Emperor inside Supreme Taser cursed. That exaggerated body was even more terrifying than his Supreme Taser. Supreme Taser's height only reached the waist of the complete Consusanu. It's over, Dustless murmured inside Consusanu's complete body. He used his mind to control Consusanu's movements. Clang 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 clang. The golden greatsword was pulled out of its scabbard. Glaring at Supreme Taser, complete form Consusanu raised the Tachi of light with both hands, and finally slashed down under Dustless's control. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. An invincible shockwave emerged. The moment it appeared, the Imperial City was split into two by that invincible sharpness. Shocking cracks also appeared on the ground. You want to destroy my empire? Don't even think about it. I will never allow it. The Emperor obviously didn't give up. The thick light in Supreme Taser's mouth was also shot out in the end. Boom boom boom. The power of these two destructive moves was unimaginably strong. Everywhere they passed, everything was reduced to ruins. Crack. However, it was obvious that the complete form Consusanu's power was stronger. The sharp wind from the blade pierced through the huge light and tore it apart effortlessly. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Under the Emperor's desperate gaze, the hurricane that didn't slow down swept towards Supreme Taser, who was already a fish on the chopping board. The outer armor was already showing signs of collapsing. Boom boom boom. Under the direct attack of the complete form Consusanu, the mere Supreme Taser immediately collapsed. It showed its weak side that no one knew about. It was killed by the overwhelming power. Not even a corpse was left behind. It was directly slashed apart by the blade, turning into wreckage and various parts that filled the sky. Pucci! The Emperor's entire body was slashed into pieces by the sharpness, turning into a pool of blood and a large amount of broken bones. It's finally over, right? After removing the exaggerated body of the complete form Kinsusanu, Dustless landed on the ground again. When he raised his head again, he found that everyone's eyes had changed. This is... You can treat me as a messenger of justice sent by the heavens to punish the Empire. If he said that he was a human, perhaps no one would believe him anymore. This unparalleled power was not something that a human could control. Especially the absolute power of the complete form Kinsusanu. It shocked everyone, leaving an indelible impression in everyone's mind and soul. It's almost time to retreat. All the problems have been solved. Looking up at the sky, Dustless looked at the blue void, not hiding his fascination and anticipation. Speaking of which, where are Lubbock and Susanu? Looking around, Dustless found that only the two of them were missing. The rest were all there. Just now, the two of them were blown away by the light of the supreme taser. Not even their bones were left. Akame lowered her head and answered. Even though she already had the resolve to be an assassin, she still felt a sense of loss. It was normal for the fish in the moat to be implicated in a fight between two monsters that were dozens of meters tall. The fact that Susanu and Lubbock were killed could only mean that the two of them were unlucky. This is fate that can't be changed. Dustless shook his head. The Emperor was dead, and the Empire had collapsed. Everything was over. The fulfillment of this world had also come to an end. Chapter 1673. Time passed quickly, and only a few days had passed. The outside world was no longer suitable for survival. The eternal light of infinite Tsukuyami was reflected on the moon, and everything had entered the end. In the system world, Dustless brought all the members of the night raid in. After all, infinite Tsukuyami had arrived, and all living things had entered the end. It was difficult for Akame and others to survive. I originally thought that you were a true gentleman who wouldn't be tempted, but it turns out that you are a great pervert who is even more absurd than the Emperor. At first, the members of the night raid were shocked by the pavilions in the system, and there were all kinds of beautiful women and all kinds of characters. Demons, humans, gods, angels. There were all kinds of characters, and they were all beautiful. Especially the beautiful figures in the palace. There were countless of them. Cough, cough, cough. Being pointed at his nose by Death, Wuchen couldn't help but blush even though his face was as thick as the city wall. He quibbled. Didn't you say it before? If you are strong you can do whatever you want. Why can't I be willful? Death was speechless and found herself speechless. She once said that this was the privilege of the strong. You too. It seems good here. The members of the night raid were embarrassed and looked at Death, who was staring at them helplessly. They found that this strange world was good. There were as many powerful people as there were sand in the Ganges. They also had no temper and were very easygoing. Perhaps because they were all women, they also had a sense of belonging to this sunny world. Well, you guys go around and get familiar with this world. We will be a family in the future. Waving his hand, Dustless ordered them to leave. Originally, the next world was supposed to be Demon's Tale or the Legend of Qin's Moon. However, when he started writing, he realized that he had forgotten most of the plot. Thus, the next world would be a Fate series for the time being. Demon's Tale and the Legend of Qin would be left for later. In another direction. I don't need to help you with this time's crossing. Dustless looked at the system consciousness Ling, speechlessly. He always felt that this guy was attacking him in a disguised way. I don't have the ability to tear space now. Crossing other worlds is even more impossible for me. Someone will summon you. Ling didn't say much. She just smiled mysteriously. Then, her body turned into a halo of light and disappeared. Her personality hasn't changed at all. She still likes to keep people in suspense. Dustless shook his head and sat down in boredom. Unexpectedly, before he could rest for a minute, he felt an inexplicable force fall on his head. Ka-ka-ka! The void exploded with a bang, and a deep black hole appeared above his head. It was deep and gloomy, and on the other side it was connected to the bottomless universe. What is this? It doesn't look like a spatial tunnel. Dustless frowned. After transmigrating several times, he had gained a new understanding of space tunnels. Although he wasn't too familiar with them, he still had some understanding of them. This bottomless black hole in front of him was clearly not a space tunnel, but rather an inexplicable contract. Is this the thing Linger was talking about? I feel like something is calling out to me. Dustless was at a loss as he felt the pulling force of the black hole. After a final moment of hesitation, he took the initiative and jumped in. He could also hear strange incantations. Master and servant? What the hell is that? Why does it sound so familiar? In the unfamiliar dark space, Dustless thought to himself. Before entering the black hole, he heard strange words like master and servant. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the dead silent space, a bright light suddenly swept across. Dustless looked over and carefully felt the special energy fluctuation for a while. After confirming that it wasn't a trap, he finally jumped in without hesitation. How is this possible? The Holy Grail War was only a battle between 7 masters and 7 servants. Why would an 8th master and an 8th servant appear now? This is absolutely impossible. As soon as he arrived in an unfamiliar world, there were shocked voices. At the same time, Dustless also understood where he had arrived. He immediately revealed a knowing smile. Dustless opened his eyes subconsciously, and 3 figures suddenly appeared in front of him. Wei Gong Qixi? This scum is definitely not my master. After glancing at the middle-aged man, Dustless's eyes fell on the 2 female figures next to him. One of them was a white woman, and the other was a blonde girl. Both of them were young, and their appearances were superb. It seems to be King Arthur and Alice Phil? It seems that she is my master. His eyes fell on Alice Phil's head, and Dustless looked at the command incantation in her hand and suddenly realized. Ahem. Miss, I am your servant, and you are my master, Dustless said in a very serious tone. He felt helpless. He didn't understand the so-called incantation at all. And the so-called command incantation seemed to be just for show. It couldn't control Dustless at all. Miss. Listening to Dustless's address, Wei Gong Qixi and Alice Phil were speechless. Aren't hero spirits all ancient people? Since when were ancient people so fashionable? Also, what's with Dustless's clothes? He was wearing casual clothes and sports shoes. The combination was quite reasonable, and he looked very avant-garde. He was even more fashionable than the people in today's society. He didn't look like an ancient person at all. There's something weird about this guy. Saber looked at Dustless strangely. She couldn't tell what was weird about him. Forget it. We have 2 servants here. We have an absolute advantage compared to other masters who are weak. Chapter 1674. Saber was overjoyed, and a blissful smile appeared on her face. Although she did not know how the 8th master and servant appeared, the benefits were definitely greater than the disadvantages. After all, Wei Gong Qixi was Alice Phil's husband, so there was no doubt that Dustless was also an ally in the trenches. This way, their chances of winning would be much higher. After staring at Dustless for a while, Wei Gong Qixi frowned and asked, "That's strange. What, holy relic? Did you use to summon this guy?" "You mean the holy relic?" Alice Phil could not help but smile bitterly. Who knew how Dustless appeared? She did not even chant a spell, nor did she prepare a magic circle. However, a command spell appeared in her hand out of nowhere, and Dustless, this mysterious guest, also appeared as a servant. Holy relic. Dustless also had a headache. Looking at Wei Gong Qixi's questioning eyes, he was speechless for a moment. Then, he waved his hand and said impatiently, "A handsome servant does not need a holy relic." Ha! The 3 of them were stunned as they stared at Dustless. This was the first time they encountered such a strange heroic spirit. "Is there something wrong with your head? Or did something go wrong during the summoning ritual?" Saber complained. She was quite dissatisfied with Dustless. Wasn't he mocking the servant that needed to be summoned? Although I don't know what's going on, one thing is for sure. In this Holy Grail War, our advantage is far greater than our disadvantage. Wei Gong Qixi could not figure it out. There were too many unsolved mysteries in this world. If he could not figure it out, then he could only muddle through. "What is your position?" Alice Phil blinked and asked curiously. "Position?" Dustless complained. He was just an intruder who came in halfway. To put it bluntly, He was an illegal immigrant. Where could he find a proper account for himself? Naturally, there was no such thing as a position. I am. Dustless lowered his head and pondered for a moment. Then his eyes lit up and he replied loudly, My job is in. Let's get along harmoniously in the future. End. Saber, Wei Gong Qixi, and Alice Phil looked at each other. This position meant the end of everything. Forget it, there's no need to worry about such trivial matters. The location of the Holy Grail War, this time, is Dongmu City. The few of us will rush over tomorrow. But I've only booked 3 tickets at the moment. Wei Gong Qixi revealed an apologetic expression. The 3 of them were himself, Saber, Alice and Phil. Don't worry, I can fly over. Dustless smiled and said politely. Even though he didn't like the man in front of him, he still had to follow basic etiquette. It can fly. Saber, Wei Gong Qixi, and Alice Phil were shocked. A spirit that could fly? Was that still a heroic spirit? He had never heard of heroic spirits being able to fly. There's nothing to be surprised about. Compared to Saber, I can't be more ordinary. With a modest smile on his face, Dustless said calmly. In that case, let's have a good night's rest. We'll rush to Dongmu City tomorrow. On the plane the next day, Wei Gong Qixi, Alice, Phil, and Saber boarded the plane together. Only Dustless set off alone, feeling bored. But before leaving, Wei Gong Qixi asked Dustless to bring along a person, Zhou Meimi. This person was saved by Wei Gong Qixi once when she was young, and they were like childhood friends. Miss Meimi, it's the first time we meet. Please take care of me. Dustless elegantly extended his right arm with an imperceptible smile on his face. You get along well. Seeing Dustless's action, Zhou Meimi was stunned. How is this a heroic spirit? He's no different from a modern person, not like an old-fashioned heroic spirit at all. Let's go. Staring at the plane taking off in the distance, Dustless suddenly reached out and hugged Zhou Meimi. What are you doing? Let go of me. A heroic spirit is so lascivious. You're a weirdo. Zhou Meimi, who was in a trance for a moment, snapped back to reality. Let go? Dustless ignored it when he heard that and retorted with a question. If I let go of you, how can I bring you along to fly together? Don't tell me you want to hug me? In that case, of course, it's fine, but the premise is that you don't think that I'm taking advantage of you. You? Zhou Meimi was dumbfounded. She was speechless by Dustless's words. She could only be silent and let Dustless hug her snake-like waist. Zhou Meimi's face was slightly red, and then she remembered the task that Wei Gong Qixi gave her and returned to normal. This guy can really fly. Looking down at the sky below, Zhou Meimi's eyes were in a daze. The charming scenery was panoramic. She was a little obsessed for a moment, and her mind was blank. Don't call me Guy. I'm a heroic spirit. You can call my job title END, but compared to the so-called job title, I prefer you to call me by my name, Dustless. Staring at the large passenger plane in front, Dustless explained in a rather bored manner. Dustless? I understand. But you're really a strange heroic spirit. Zhou Meimi whispered. Although her voice was very soft, Dustless still heard it clearly. It just so happened that right at this moment, Wu Chen's sudden words caused her expression to go grim. Chapter 1675. Miss Zhou Mommy. Anyway, we still have a long time. Let me guess your motive. The bored Dustless smiled and looked at Zhou Mommy. He ignored her expression and said to himself, logically speaking, you should have known that the Holy Grail War would be held in Dongmu City, and you should have already booked the tickets. You are Wei Gong Qixi's assistant, and that guy is very smart. It is impossible for him to forget to book the tickets for you. Then, there is only one possibility. Ignoring Zhou Mommy's stunned expression, Dustless continued to analyze. If you are with me, it is just to test my ability, right? If you think that I am useless, I guess you will set a trap to lure other servants to kill me, and you and Wei Gong Qixi will ambush the other party's master, right? What a cunning and smart vile man. Dustless explained to himself. His expression was calm, as if what he said was just a small matter. In fact, Dustless hated Wei Gong Qixi very much. He was extremely despicable. Of course, Dustless also belonged to the despicable and shameless type. He was not qualified to criticize others, but there should be a bottom line for everything. For the so-called justice, he used his own wife as bait and let Alice Phil pretend to be Saber's master to lure other masters to kill him. Who else could be so despicable? For the sake of justice, he actually used his own wife as bait. Yo! At this moment, Dustless suddenly felt that his head was cold. He turned his head and saw a black pistol aimed at his head. You have such an intense behavior, which means that my previous guess was true. Gently shaking his head, Dustless felt that Joyu Mommy and Alice Phil were not worth it. They were sacrificed for that scum Wei Gong Qixi. Who are you? Joyu Mommy's eyes were cold, and her tone was unfriendly. Pointing a gun at a heroic spirit? You're playing with fire. Dustless replied indifferently as he looked at the void in front of him. I just want to tell you that if you and Wei Gong Qixi have any unrealistic plans against me, you better give up as soon as possible. We are now allies in the same trench. I am also very interested in the Holy Grail. Moreover, you're just a mere human. Don't you think you're too naive and laughable to scheme against a heroic spirit? Dustless sneered coldly. Don't you dare look down on humans. Takumi Joyu snorted in dissatisfaction. Besides, no matter how powerful or special you are, you're still just a human when you're alive. This guy is really ignorant. Dustless could not help but laugh when he heard that. So this guy actually thought that he was dead. However, most heroic spirits were like that. They were all summoned to participate in the Holy Grail War. Not everyone was as cheat-like as Dustless. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, a series of sonic booms suddenly sounded in front of them. The mysterious object's tail was covered in flames, and it directly blasted towards the flying plane. It didn't matter that Dustless did not recognize it, but Takumi Joyu, who was often in contact with firearms, was shocked. She said in panic, "Oh no, that thing is a cruise missile." Cruise missile? Hearing that, Dustless's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, and then he frowned. This kind of thing was naturally useless against him. Not to mention a cruise missile, even if an atomic bomb came, it would be useless. With Saber's strength, she would probably be fine. However, whether or not Wei Gong Qixi and Alice Phil would be spared was a question mark. Boom boom boom. The speed of the missile was beyond imagination. When Dustless was about to intercept it, the flying plane was attacked by the missile and instantly exploded into a pile of fire. Qixi! Takumi Joyu shouted nervously and worriedly. The first thing she was worried about was not Saber and Alice Phil. It was enough to prove that the relationship between the two was extraordinary. I'm fine. Through his perverted vision, Dustless saw that in the explosion of the fire, the three of them were fine. It's normal for Alice Phil to be fine with Saber's protection. But why is Wei Gong Qixi safe and sound? That light. Could it be the sheath of the holy sword Avalon? Dustless thought to himself. He saw that Wei Gong Qixi's body was flowing with holy light. He was not injured, but the passengers on the plane could not escape the nightmare. They were all killed by the cruise missile. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Although their lives were saved, because they were in the sky, the three of them quickly fell down. Wan Xiang Tianing. His left arm erupted with a strong gravitational force, and the three people who fell to the sea were forcibly absorbed by Dustless. Such a convenient ability. Not bad. Floating around Dustless, Saber and the other two were relieved. They stared at Dustless nervously, afraid that this guy would be distracted and throw them down. Although I don't know what happened, one thing is certain, it should be the other masters who attacked us. Dustless analyzed seriously and looked at Wei Gong Qixi with a strained expression. He said with difficulty, "My gravitational control is average. I can only support 2 people flying. Say, it's all my fault for being useless. I'm really sorry. How about this, Wei Gong Qixi? I'll temporarily put you on the Pacific Ocean and leave with Saber and Alice Phil first. You can swim to Dongmu City by yourself. How about that?" This guy. Wei Gong Qixi was furious when he heard that. This is the center of the Pacific Ocean. You want me to swim to Japan? This vulgar and low-level joke was simply too bad. Chapter 1676. Swimming from the Pacific Ocean to Japan? Are you out of your mind? Before Kamikaze could refute, Kuyumamiya yelled, "That's impossible. No human in this world can swim from the Pacific Ocean to Japan. Tiska, I'm just a special case. Although I'm using my flying ability." Dustless smiled and teased. "All in all, I can only carry 3 people at most: Saber, Alice, Faye, and you. As for the others, I'm sorry, I can't help." "Is that so? Then you can take the 3 of them and leave." Kamikaze sighed and waved his hand. "I'll call a ship. When we reach Dongmu City, you must be careful, especially Yen Feng Chi Li. You must pay attention to him. I suspect that the cruise missile incident was done by that guy. I have a very dangerous feeling. That guy will be the strongest enemy we'll ever meet. No matter what, he's just a human." Dustless pursed his lips. Yen Feng Chi Li was indeed dangerous when humans fought against humans. However, if he was caught by a hero spirit, he would be nothing more than an ant. "Where's the person who attacked us?" Saber widened her eyes and wiped her mouth. She carefully looked down at the large number of uninhabited islands in the sea below. She could not find where the person who attacked them was hiding. "There are too many scattered islands." Saber smiled apologetically. Although she was a hero spirit, she was not a god. She could not find a person on the ground hundreds of meters away or even 1,000 meters in the air. "Leave it to me." Dustless smiled and said, "As long as all these islands are sunk, no matter if it's master or servant, they won't be able to escape." Ka. As soon as he finished speaking, a high-density energy ball appeared in front of Dustless's thumb. As the force was too strong, the surrounding void was distorted and collapsed. "Who ordered you to use your noble phantasm?" Kamikaze shouted angrily. "Noble phantasm?" Dustless glanced at Kamikaze and said coldly, "If this is a noble phantasm, then I have too many of them." Wang Su's flash. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a flick of his finger, the energy ball shot out towards the scattered islands on the ground. Boom boom boom. The calm sea surface trembled, and waves that were dozens of meters high splashed. Then the scattered islands in an extremely simple manner. Gulu! Saber couldn't help but be stunned when she saw the exaggerated range of the attack. Even with such a large distance, it was still able to raise an island hundreds of meters away to the ground. The power of the attack was self-evident. No matter what, as long as there are masters and servants on this island, they're all dead meat. Wu Chen's narration was as light as a breeze. It was as if he had done something like eating and drinking water. It was unbelievably calm. Bastard! Wei Gongqi, who regained his senses, was enraged. He glared at Wu Chen. He always felt that this rascal was always going against him. "You've sunk all the islands. What about me?" Kamikaze's expression was bitter. Dustless's flying ability could only carry 3 people at most. Hence, he had to stay behind. Now that the islands had sunk, how could he accept it? "That's your problem, Mr. Master." Dustless smiled innocently. To be honest, he had purposely tricked Kamikaze. "Goodbye, Kamikaze. Swim all the way to Dongmu City." With a smile, the gravitational force on Kamikaze disappeared. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A black shadow fell straight into the sea. "Master, are you sure you're okay? What if the other servants attack you?" Saber asked anxiously. She stared at Dustless and then at Alice Phil. "It's okay. Since Kamikaze asked us to leave first, he must have other ways to get to Dongmu City. Everyone, please believe in him." Alice Phil did not show much emotion. She smiled and explained, "I believe in Kamikaze. He will definitely be able to get through this." "Master, your relationship is really deep. I'm envious of you." Dustless made a jealous expression and immediately pointed to the sea below and said, "You may not have noticed, but I, with my special ability, happened to see Kamikaze being chased by a group of sharks, Dongmu City. In an obscure and unknown room, 2 middle-aged men were conversing. One of them was dressed like a middle-aged priest, while the other was an elegant man in a red suit, Toshimi Nagasaka. Kiri, have you found the trace of the 8th Einher jar?" Toshiomi looked at the man in front of him expectantly. "Found it. This is the video of that guy. At that time my assassin attacked him." Yen Feng Kiri handed the saved video to Toshiomi. "Did that guy find assassin?" While staring at the video with interest, Toshiomi Inaka asked calmly on the other side. I don't think so. Assassin is good at assassination. The 8th Einherjar did not find him. Yen Fengkiri said truthfully. Is that so? It seems like he's just an insignificant character. Don't worry. Toshiomi was relieved and labeled Dustless as a cheap guy. That's not right, Toshiomi frowned and asked. Since he did not find Assassin, how did Assassin get killed by someone else? This, Yen Fengkiri said helplessly. Although Assassin was not found, that guy seemed to be enraged. He used his noble relic to destroy all the islands. Assassin was also killed instantly. All the islands were sunk by him. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.